My name is Councillor Stephen Holliday. I'm the chair of the Audit Committee. We have quorum. I am now calling meeting number 10 to order. Welcome, everyone. Today's meeting is being held by video conference and in person at City Hall in the Council Chamber. The meeting is also being live streamed online at youtube.com/Toronto City Council Live. Although we may be meeting in different locations today, the Audit Committee would like to acknowledge that the land we are meeting on is the traditional territory of many nations, including the Mississaugas of the Credit, the Anishinaabe, the Chippewa, the Haudenosaunee, the Wendat peoples, and is now home to many diverse First Nations, Inuit, and Métis peoples. We also acknowledge that Toronto is covered by Treaty 13 with the Mississaugas of the Credit. If you're registered to speak at today's meeting, please listen for me to call your name. I will call speakers in the order that they appear on the list. The list of speakers can be viewed online by visiting the Audit Committee meeting at toronto.ca/council and clicking the speakers box for the meeting. Members, the City Clerk has posted all agenda materials on toronto.ca/council and on the CMP, the Clerk's meeting portal. Clerk's IT staff are available to members if you need help with your devices. I also want to remind you to please submit and approve your motions by email. Staff are available at auditctte, Audit Committee, at toronto.ca to help with motions. Members, as we are meeting in the Council Chamber, please note that you will be able to control your microphone as you normally would in the committee room. Before we proceed, I have a brief announcement for Audit Committee members. During the last term of City Council from October 2020 to February 2022, this committee was supported by Julie Lavertu and her team from the City Clerk's office. For those that may not be aware, Julie passed away on September 23rd of this year. Julie leaves behind her husband, Mark Chambers, and her Haven't-See dog, Galileo. And I mention that because Julie was very much a dog person and shared the adventures of her dogs with many others. She was a dedicated public servant. She worked for the City of Mississauga and the town of Oakville before joining the Clerk's office in the City of Toronto in 2014. I know that Julie was extremely proud of her work at the Audit Committee, and she managed so many files, and she managed her way through things like COVID. And I still remember Julie having to wear a mask and us conducting those audit meetings in hybrid format. This is truly sad news. Julie passed away at a very young age, and it is a loss. And I also want to acknowledge the incredible work that the clerks do every day, very quietly, to get all of the rough edges of the things that come through the committee and get them in order and into the public record. And for that, I'm grateful, and I'm glad that we just had a moment to mention and think about Julie. I'd also like to recognize the Auditor General, who has a brief statement to make before we take a motion to adopt the minutes from our previous meeting. Madam Auditor.
Thank you, Chair. I would like to provide a correction related to a verbal statement I made at the July 11, 2025 Audit Committee meeting on agenda item AU 9.6, 2025 Winter Maintenance Program Follow-up Status of Auditor General's previous recommendations. I incorrectly stated Municipal Maintenance Inc. and IML are affiliated entities, and am retracting this statement. Upon becoming aware this statement was incorrect, I sent an email on July 31st, 2025, notifying Audit Committee members and management. Clerk, if you can please ensure that this retraction is recorded in the minutes of this meeting as a public record. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Auditor. Are there any declarations of interest under the Municipal Conflict of Interest Act? If you do have an interest, please raise your hand or unmute your mic and indicate the item number and the nature of the interest. Seeing none, we will proceed. May I have a motion to confirm the minutes from our meeting on July 11, 2025? Moved by Councillor Myers. All those in favor? Any opposed? And that is carried.
Chair, just a quick point of privilege.
Of course, a point of privilege, Councillor Myers.
I would just like to recognize my goddaughter, Rain Rowe, who's here for Take Your Kid to Work Day, and she's sitting beside Joshua, and all the other kids who I see are here for Take Your Kid to Work Day.
Welcome to the Audit Committee meeting. We hope you have a memorable experience. Right, Councillor Myers?
Thank you.
Okay, we'll go through the items. Our first item is AU 10.1, the Auditor General's Office 2026 Work Plan and Budget Highlights. I'll hold that because there's a speaker and a presentation from the Auditor General. AU 10.2 is the Toronto Police Service IT Infrastructure Cybersecurity Assessment and Follow-up of Previous Recommendations. Would a member like to move the item? Vice Chair Fletcher moves the item. All those in favor? Any opposed? That is carried. And I'm just going to remind the clerk that you can't kick me under the table to remind me if I miss a step here, so you'll have to not be shy. The AU 10.3 is Audit of Toronto Water, Stormwater, and Wastewater Contract Management. This item I'm happy to hold for a presentation. AU 10.4, KPMG Management Letter for the City of Toronto with management responses for period ending December 31st, 2024. Is any member interested in holding this item? Or if not, may I have someone move the recommendations? And the recommendation is to receive the management letter. Councillor Nunziata moves. All those in favor? Any opposed? That is carried. AU 10.5 is the KPMG Management Letter Recommendations. These are updates on action plans resulting from previous KPMG recommendations. And when wishing to hold this item, if not, may I have a mover? Councillor Myers moves. All those in favor? Any opposed? That carries. AU 10.6, Audit of Parks Branch Operations, Phase 1 and 2. November 2025 status update. Any members wishing to hold? May I have, Councillor Myers, did you want to hold? Councillor Myers is holding AU 10.6. AU 10.7 is Community Center 55, 2024 Audited Financial Statements. May I have a member? Councillor Fletcher moves the item. All those in favor? Any opposed? That carries. AU 10.8 is Arena's 2024 Audited Financial Statements and Status of Outstanding 2024 Audited Financial Statements. Does anyone have any questions about this item? I'm going to hold it. I have provided the clerk a motion which you'll pre-circulate. It's fairly straightforward. We'll get to it at that point. AU 10, so that'll be held. AU 10.9, Utility Construction Photo Documentation. This is a report for receipt. Any members wishing to hold? Councillor Fletcher, Vice Chair Fletcher holds AU 10.9. AU 10.10, Business Improvement Areas, update on the 2024 Audited Financial Statements. Anyone looking for a hold? If not, may I have someone move the item? Vice Chair Fletcher moves the item. All those in favor? Any opposed? That carries. AU 10.11, Toronto Community Housing Corporation 2025 follow-up, status of previous Auditor General recommendations and Toronto Community Housing Corporation results of 2021 follow-up of previous audit recommendations. Any questions on this item? May I have a member move it? If not, I'll move the... The clerk is providing a motion to clarify this decision, so it'll be City Council to receive the report from the Auditor General. And there's the report name. All those in favor? Any opposed? That carries. Okay, back up to the top of the list. We are at AU 10.1, which is the Auditor General's 2026 Work Plan and Budget Highlights. Yeah, so the presentation will be first, and then we do have a speaker registered, and that will follow the presentation.
Okay, ready to start? Thank you, Chair. So this presentation is on my office's 2026 work plan. I'd like to acknowledge and thank my team, which includes Ariane Chan, Assistant Auditor General, Matthew Crisafulli, Senior Audit Manager, as well as our executive team and all our staff who contributed their ideas and suggestions. During this presentation, I will cover how our audits are selected and coverage of past reports. Then I'll walk through our 2026 work plan, including this year's key audit focus areas, projects in progress or starting in 2026, projects on the horizon, a summary by key area of audit focus, as well as other significant work for my office. My report also includes my 2026 budget request highlights. I am providing this to Audit Committee for information only as you consider my office's 2026 work plan. My 2026 budget request will go directly to the Budget Committee for consideration in January 2026. But in terms of the highlights for 2026, I am requesting a budget of $9.119 million. My office's budget represents approximately 0.05% of the city's 2025 operating budget and remains among the lowest of major municipalities across Canada, as well as those of a number of municipalities in the United States. It also reflects that we are now at full staff complement of 44 FTEs, and if approved, I believe that my 2026 budget request is sufficient to cover the work outlined in my 2026 work plan. I'd also like to note that if councillors either request through a motion that I consider an additional audit or vote with 2/3 majority resolution to add an audit to my plan, I would need to delay an audit currently on my plan in order to do that additional work. Before I walk you through my office's 2026 work plan, I think it's important to keep in mind how we select audits to be included. Our office conducts a citywide risk and opportunities assessment every 5 years and updates it annually for changes in emerging risks, priorities, and trends and allegations to our fraud and waste hotline. The risk factors used are outlined in Appendix 2 of the report and include financial significance, cybersecurity, AI and IT, public interest, and adequacy of internal controls. We also consider input from councillors and management, and we use the knowledge that we've developed through our previous audits and follow-up work. We aim to have audit coverage across the various city divisions, agencies, and corporations. This slide shows the coverage we've achieved with our reports over the past 5 years. You can see that we've provided breadth, covering a wide range of divisions, agencies, and corporations, as well as in-depth coverage on certain areas, such as transportation services, technology services, Toronto Transit Commission, and Toronto Police Service. You can find a list of our past reports from 2021 to 2025 in Appendix 3 of our report. In 2026, we plan to continue our focus on key areas such as housing and community, cybersecurity and IT, and infrastructure, transit, and environment. It's important to note that the 2026 work plan is intended to be flexible, allowing the Auditor General to respond to emerging issues, including the need to assign resources to investigations into high-risk allegations when needed. In 2026, we will also be conducting our new risk and opportunities assessment of city divisions and its major agencies and corporations, including Toronto Police Service. This was deferred from this year due to other priorities. This slide outlines our 2026 work plan. The blue font shows projects that are in progress or recently started, and the remaining projects in black font are those that we plan to start in 2026. Of the projects listed in my work plan, we have 10 projects currently in progress or recently started, including Phase 1 of the Cybersecurity Assessment of Exhibition Place, the Cybersecurity Assessment of Toronto Public Library, our investigation into the procurement of the Pay-It platform, an IT governance audit of the Toronto Police Service, a capital planning audit of TCHC and TSHC, for CREM oversight and management of change orders on CREM capital projects, solid waste management services, contract management of collections and litter operations, the administrative penalty system on parking and red light camera tickets, and we've just started one on road maintenance for transportation services. We're also now doing data analytics continuous controls monitoring, starting with payroll-related expenses, including overtime and absenteeism. New projects starting in 2026 include audits of TTC electric buses, a cybersecurity assessment of the Toronto Zoo, an audit of supportive housing, a citywide audit on cybersecurity risk of third-party shared services, one cybersecurity project to be determined, which may include follow-up of our previous cyber reports of the city, and separate follow-up reports of Toronto Police Service and the TTC. The report also includes projects on the horizon that may commence in late 2026 or 2027, depending on priorities and emerging risks, including audits of affordable rental housing, electric ferries, community recreation centers, a review of development applications, for Children's Services, Toronto's participation in Canada-wide early learning and childcare program, an IT audit of hardware asset utilization and data centers management, a citywide audit on the use of consultants, TTC subway maintenance, an audit of Toronto Police Service with the topic to be determined after our 2026 risk assessment, and 2 cybersecurity audits to be selected. This slide shows all the projects that we have planned for both our 2026 work plan and on the horizon by our 3 key focus areas. Again, those shown in blue font are in progress or recently started, and the red asterisk indicates restricted entities where I need to be and have been invited in by the board to be able to do the work. Housing and community continues to be a priority for the city. Our audit on capital planning at the Toronto Community Housing Corporation and Toronto Seniors Housing Corporation is in progress, and we will start supportive housing in 2026. On our audit horizon, we have affordable rental housing, an operational review of development applications, community recreation centers, Toronto's participation in Canada-wide early learning and childcare program, and an audit with the topic to be determined at the Toronto Police Service. We will also continue our focus on cybersecurity and IT. This includes cybersecurity assessments in progress of Exhibition Place, both phases 1 and 2, and the Toronto Public Library. On the horizon, we have a cybersecurity assessment of the Toronto Zoo and others to be determined, as well as an audit of cybersecurity risk of third-party shared services. For IT, our IT governance audit of Toronto Police Service is in progress, and on the horizon, we have a citywide audit of hardware asset utilization and data centers management. Lastly, infrastructure, transit, and environment is another key area of focus for this year. We have 4 audits currently in progress: solid waste management service, contract management of collections and litter operations, CRAM oversight and management of change orders on CRAM capital projects, administrative penalty system, and road maintenance. In 2026, we will start audits of electric ferries and TTC electric buses, and on the horizon, we have an audit of TTC subway maintenance. We also have a backlog list of 89 potential projects that we would like to be able to complete over the longer term, and you can find this backlog list in Exhibit 1 of our report. In addition to our audits, we also have other significant areas of work, and this includes our recommendation follow-up. We have a significant number of outstanding recommendations, and management have self-assessed about 29% or 160 out of 561 of those as fully implemented. Our follow-up process includes verifying those recommendations that management has self-assessed as fully implemented, focusing on those that are high priority. High priority recommendations either have cost savings attached to them, are considered higher risk in terms of safety and other risk factors, or have been outstanding longer than 5 years. There has been an increased emphasis from this audit committee as well as audit committees of certain agencies to ensure the recommendations greater than 5 years old, particularly those 10 years or older, are addressed and closed quickly, which our office appreciates. Given the turnover of staff at the city and our office since the time of those reports, we are finding it is taking additional time on these ones, but they all still appear to be very relevant, and we are working together with staff with support from internal audit teams at the city and its agencies, and will verify them once fully implemented. For this next follow-up cycle, we plan to focus on the following divisions: Housing Secretariat, Technology Services, Purchasing and Materials Management, Corporate Real Estate Services, Municipal Licensing and Standards, and Engineering and Construction Services. For agencies and corporations, our focus will be on the Toronto Transit Commission, Toronto Parking Authority, and the Toronto Police Service. For our fraud and waste hotline that we operate, we continue to receive a high volume of complaints. As of September 30th, 2025, we had 515 complaints representing more than 800 allegations. Based on this volume, the hotline could receive approximately 690 complaints by year end. Our forensic unit conducts investigations into high-risk allegations and follows up on those referred to divisions for investigation. Conducting investigations into high-risk allegations can require a significant number of staff resources, time, and in some cases, costs associated with hiring external specialists. So to recap, the audits selected for my office's 2026 work plan keep pace with risks and emerging issues, consider input received, including any City Council motions to date, and provide coverage across the city and its agencies and corporations, with the goal to continue to assist City Council in holding management accountable to achieve value for money in city operations, and to help the city to make a positive difference in the lives of Torontonians and to add value to the city, including continued cost savings. Thank you for your time, and I'd also like to say thank you to all the councillors, management and staff, and members of the public who have taken the time to provide their ideas and suggestions for my work plan. I value your contributions and feedback very much, and please continue to stay engaged and to keep those ideas coming. Back to you, Chair.
Thank you, Madam Auditor. We will now move to public deputations. It'll just take a moment to change over, but our speaker is Daniel Tate.
Good morning.
Good morning, Mr. Tate. Welcome to the Audit Committee. You have 5 minutes.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. I'm here to give a deputation because I believe, and on behalf of many in the Integrity TO Coalition, believe that the Audit Committee is probably one of the most essential and important committees in all of City Hall, because this is really the committee that keeps an eagle eye on our money, on the public coffers. And right now, the climate in our city is that taxpayers don't feel like we're getting value for our tax dollar. A lot of people see our taxes going up and up and up, and services declining, and this is very concerning, which is why we need to have an even deeper audit on several city divisions to ensure that our tax dollars are being stewarded appropriately. One thing that I wanted to call out, and I really want to press upon the members of this committee and others in this chamber, is that there's one division in particular that we're concerned about, and that is the Toronto Shelter and Support Services Division. This is one of the most expensive city divisions. It's probably ranked number 3 or 4 in terms of its annual operating budget, behind Toronto Police and the TTC. And it's very concerning because we see homelessness increase in our city, and it feels like we're just throwing more and more money towards a problem that is not improving. And the budget of TSSS has truly grown out of control over the last few years. In fiscal year 2025, it has an $898 million annual budget. That's projected to exceed $900 million and potentially even $1 billion, considering the shortfalls that the mayor's talked about recently. So this is very concerning that we are on the cusp of having a third city division that's going to have a close to, if not exceeding, $1 billion annual operating budget. And remember, this division, although it does important work, it's not serving every Torontonian. You look at the TTC, you look at Toronto Police, yeah, those are billion-dollar departments, but they serve the entire city. With TSSS, in this case, they serve, I think the latest stat is about 12,000 homeless individuals. This works out to about $75,000 per person. And when you consider that, the average salary for a Torontonian is $79,000 a year. So this is very, very concerning, and I think TSSS should be put under the spotlight and should be given more scrutiny from the city auditor. I know they're on the list, but I feel like they're pretty down on the list, and I think we should prioritize them. And we know that there potentially is issues to find because certain people in this room in the audit committee earlier in the year had representatives who were managing the respite centers and the warming centers, and in that audit committee meeting, financial irregularities were found. We found that there were third-party consultants, vendors, NGOs, et cetera, who were dishonest with their invoicing. They were invoicing for services that were not delivered, or they were invoicing for beds that weren't used. And so to me, that represents the tip of the iceberg. Where there's smoke, there's fire. And I think everybody in this room should really put in a lot more effort to understand where this almost $1 billion is going. I'll give you another example. One Community Solutions. They've received $40 million over the last 4 or 5 years from the city on a single source contract, a single source bid. And they wear Crocs to work, by the way. So these are all concerning things, which is why I think, and Integrity TO believes, that TSSS should receive a higher priority, more scrutiny, and a deeper audit in 2026. Just to give you some more historical data here quickly, 2023, their budget was $707 million. 2024, $787 million. 2025, $898. And Lord knows what 2026 is going to be. So we also have a petition, and ideally we would have a third-party forensic audit, but look, if we can't go that route for whatever reason, let's do one internally. I also think Toronto Parking Authority should be audited as well. Their president receives $500,000 in salary, more than the mayor and the premier combined, and they also have data security issues that were outlined in a Toronto Life article last month. I think Toronto Parking Authority needs a deeper look. And lastly, if I could give you this report, Mr. Chair, it's a report that we drafted about the state of Toronto Shelter and Support Services. Would I be able to give it to you?
The clerk is coming to collect that.
Thank you very much.
And I'll ask you to just ensure that you've wrapped up. Thank you
I am
for
wrapped
speaking
up
to us.
Thank you.
Are there questions of the speaker? Councillor Nunziata, please go ahead.
Yeah, just a question. When talk about the homeless, are you asking or advocating for more shelters?
I'm advocating for an audit of TSSS.
But do you think the issue is we don't have enough shelters for the homeless?
Well, we'd have to look at those numbers. I think a lot of our shelter capacity is being utilized by people who perhaps shouldn't be here. We know that 40 to 50% of all shelter capacity is being utilized by illegal migrants and refugees and asylum seekers. And there are a lot of Canadian citizens who are on the streets right now who have lived here their whole life, worked, paid taxes, and they can't get shelter services. So in that regard, yeah, shelters are full. They're not in a great state. They're not in a good state. A lot of them, people say there's rampant drug use because a lot of them offer harm reduction services. So these are all problems that need to be looked into.
Do you think that the federal government should be stepping up as well, as far as?
Yeah, surely the federal government is culpable for a lot of the problems we're in, the fiscal issues that we're in. I agree. We've had a leaky immigration system for a period of time that has exacerbated the problem, so certainly.
Thank you.
Thank you. Are there other questions? Seeing none, I'm going to ask just a couple. Mr. Tate, you brought up 2 areas of focus. That is the shelter system. The second was the parking authority, who's one of our agencies. I see the auditor taking copious notes during your deputation. Are there any detailed, and I'll finish this question, are there any areas of detail that you would like to bring up in this forum, and knowing that the auditor's listening and the committee's listening? And conversely, if you're not comfortable or it's not the right forum to go through the details, you're aware that there's a process to get to the Auditor General through the Fraud and Waste Hotline if you wanted to articulate those and get them into the process for consideration.
Yeah, that's a great point. I just learned about the fraud and waste hotline recently, and I'll make a few calls. Taxpayers and residents just want a lot more accountability and transparency with how our money is being utilized. We have close to a $19 billion budget staring us in the face, and a lot of people don't feel like we're getting the value for money. A lot of people think we have a bureaucracy that's ballooned out of control, so the more we can hone in on this kind of stuff and have a right-sized city government, then the better.
Thank you for speaking with us today.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Are there any other speakers to this matter? Seeing none, we will go to questions of staff. Councillor Nunziata.
Yeah, just to, part of your presentation, which is, page 9, I believe, there's 561 outstanding recommendations.
Yes, through
And
the chair,
how-
yes, that's
How
correct.
far back do those recommendations go? Like,
Some of them, as I mentioned, some of them are 10 years or older.
and for 10 years, they haven't adopted any of the recommendations?
So as I mentioned in my presentation, there has been increased emphasis on those, and so we have been meeting with staff, and internal audit has been helping to support. There are some that are more challenging than others to implement. For example, court services relying on the provincial system in terms of a system to be implemented. And there is progress being made, but as I said, once they are fully implemented, we will verify them.
So
And
any of
I
those,
did also go through all of them just to check if any weren't relevant anymore, but they are still relevant.
any of those outstanding recommendations, there's a financial impact on them?
Through the chair, there would be for some. I believe the city cleaning would have some financial impact. And I have, Syed, are there others that are the older ones that might have a financial impact?
Yeah, through you, Chair. Yeah, so there are a few recommendations that may belong to a few technology services division that we are looking at, and some, as or Madam Auditor General mentioned, cleaning services, and we have some recommendations belonging to other areas.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Was that all the questions? Are there any other questions of the Auditor General? Vice Chair Fletcher.
There we go. Thank you. I'm just interested in the capital planning of TCHC and THC. Is this facilities management? Is it capital planning? What do you mean by that? Revitalization or state of good repair or what?
So through the chair, it is on capital planning.
Which is?
Let me just.
Capital planning can be a revite, capital planning can be
Right.
state of good repair.
So it
Which
is
one is
to
it?
assess whether TCHC's building repair capital program is effectively planned and managed to reduce the state of good repair backlog and achieve intended outcomes for both TCHC and TSHC. And we may
put
consider
that on the
capital
list.
delivery in a future
Pardon
phase.
me?
We may consider capital delivery in a future phase, but in this phase, it's
I'm just
focused on
interested
capital
why
planning.
that's been chosen.
It's based on our risk assessment that we did through the audit planning phase.
Well, let's hear about that, because as you know, Toronto Community Housing went through a whole number of difficult years, and it's now stable. So I'm sure you're taking that into account in looking at more of the current state of good repair rather than how it was done in the past. So I'm quite interested in that. I don't know if anybody's here from Toronto Community Housing, because they're not here. And how we've instructed you to operate in the past when you've had a troubled corporation.
I'm just going to put you on pause. I'm going to
Yeah.
confer with the clerk on this.
What are you going to confer about?
We may have someone from TCHC. If we can get them.
Well, I'll also ask the city manager, because there's been.
Okay, go ahead.
Yeah, but I'd like somebody here, and I'm really going to dig in, because I don't necessarily think that there's different times for an audit, so I'm just going to ask you, Mr. City Manager, it's taken a number of years to stabilize Toronto community housing over I forget how many CEOs and staff changes, and now at this moment, there is what I would just call a robust executive leadership team, senior leadership team that is putting things back together again. And I'd just like to hear your opinion on that, and I may need more time, Chair.
Chair, certainly there is, you know, a strong stability at the executive level right now, and we've also, as you know, through the mayor's direction, I won't say restructured, but reorganized the way that TCHC, Creatio, and the city are working together to deliver housing in the community.
This is
What I will say is that there still is a significant capital backlog and a significant capital issue, which we continue to work with TCHC on. So the financial piece of it for us is still how we stabilize things from a capital perspective.
I've got that, but leadership-wise, I would have to say that after a rocky number of years, that there appears to be a team and a stability team in place to be able to properly deliver the state of good repair.
Chair, yeah, I would agree with that, and why I brought up the way we now look at developing housing is, you know, that for a number of years there was a question about the development portion of the staffing at TCHC, and through this new way that we're delivering housing, we've also clarified their role, and I think there's a much stronger approach to development at TCHC as well.
And I really think the auditor is focusing on not redevelopment, but the actual state of good repair, the elevators, all of the major building infrastructure in the existing buildings.
Yep, and our challenge will be, as federal programs time out, we have not received enough investment to tackle all of those, and federal programs are timing out, so we're continuing to work on how we can continue to have those types of investment, which have helped us on the state of good repair. As you know, they have had a significant improvement in their overall level of vulnerability on state of good repair. However, if that federal money is not renewed in some capacity, we're going to struggle to maintain the positive gains.
That might be the case, but whether or not it was being spent well is something that the auditor would like to look at. What I'd like to understand is, because now with the stable leadership and the focus on state of good repair, new facilities management, new CEO, CFO who's very good, new redevelopment person, whether or not the focus at this moment on old state of good repair will not allow them to focus on doing their state of good repair now. So I would actually, I'm concerned about that, and I don't know if anybody's here, because that's what I need to know. In other words, maybe it should give them a chance to get everything in place before we send half of the staff off dealing around looking at all the old records. That's all.
So through the chair, the current CEO is actually quite welcoming of the audit and supportive of it, and it's not a reflection on leadership in terms of whether we select an audit or not.
It's not about the reflection on leadership. It's about the time and attention that's required from that staff to assist you with the audit rather than now actually do the job. And so that's my concern, Mr. Chair.
Question?
That is my concern, because it does take staff time to assist you, does it not?
Every audit does require some staff time, and this is focused on lessons learned for spending going forward, and the team there are quite appreciative of the audit that is being conducted.
Oh, it's already conducted?
It's in progress, yes.
So I would, I would actually, we can deal with this at council, but I would have liked somebody here. I think the board needs to understand that. State of good repair, I'll speak to that later, but in a reflection of the amount of staff time that's necessary, I'm a little concerned about it.
Thank you. Councillor Fletcher, the clerk is working on getting someone. We did have a TCHC focused report, so we do have a contact. Would you like us, we still have some questions to go through. We can stand it down and get someone here.
Yes, we should stand it down, because I might want to hear
So
from the board. I might want to hear from a lot.
Yep.
And I want to be really clear
So
about how
I have
this is
some,
impacting the current excellent work.
I have some questions. If we can get them online in that time, great. If we cannot, then we can stand it down and come back to it. And the clerk is nodding yes. I'll check, are there any other members with questions on this? Councillor
I
Crescent?
also have another question.
Mr. Chair, if I could have a
could
point
sit
of
down
privilege
now.
for about 10 seconds?
You can sit.
Point of privilege?
Sure.
You don't have to
No, I feel
stand.
like standing. I know that. It's good to stand. It's good for you. So, no, I just want to have a very special person with me here today. It's Career Day, as you know. So my granddaughter, counselor for the day, Kira Crisanti, is sitting right here. You can stand up, Kira, so they can see you. All right. Counselor for the day. Thank you very much. And Mr. Chair, I do have questions whenever you're ready.
Please proceed, Councillor.
What's that?
Please proceed, Councillor.
Oh, questions, okay. I believe we're still talking about the TTC. Just a couple of things, I think, and forgive me if some of them have been asked, more with respect to the tracking of where we're at currently and recommendations that were implemented due to fare evasion. I'm wondering if the Auditor General could speak to how many of those recommendations have been implemented or how many, maybe more specifically, are outstanding.
Yes, so through the
any.
chair, so we do have follow-up work planned on TTC fare evasion that will be starting soon. And just a reminder, that audit was done in 2019. My understanding is that the TTC Audit and Risk Management Committee and Board are on top of making sure that these recommendations are fully implemented. And in terms of the current status that I have for Phase 1 and Phase 2 combined, there were a total of 61 recommendations and 16 have been self-assessed as fully implemented, 13 in progress, and 32 closed. So closed means that we've verified and closed them.
Sure, thank you. Would you happen to know if of those that have been implemented, are you tracking, are you able to answer this today? Are you tracking what progress we're having? Is the whole fare evasion issue improving? Are we losing less money today than we were prior to the recommendations being implemented?
So through the chair, that's what we will be looking at as part of our follow-up work.
Okay, thank you. And with respect to the, and I know that the chair is here, Councillor Myers, so I just, respectfully, and as it may have been already asked, when it comes to TTC maintenance and any potential lost revenue with when the frequent shutdowns that unfortunately we experience from time to time with the TTC, do we know how much revenue we're losing and what can we do to improve that and prevent that from happening? Are you addressing that issue as well?
So through the chair, that's really more of a question for TTC management to answer. That's not part of fare evasion, I wouldn't think.
No, but through the maintenance, are you not looking at
through
the audit on TTC maintenance?
So that is a future audit, and so we need to still do the planning for that one to determine our audit scope and our audit objectives, but we can consider your suggestions.
Could you, and when you say future, so you have it in the works for when in the future do you think you'll look at it?
We have TTC subway maintenance on the horizon, so likely starting 2027.
Any way that we can move that forward, given how critical this is, to 2026?
If you'd like to make a motion to do that, and I can consider that.
I could, I'm happy to
Yep.
do that, yes. Mr. Chair, that's the motion I'll move and those are my questions, thank you.
Thank you. We're just going to finish the group. We can go to a second round. Councillor Myers.
Thank you. Through you, Chair. So my question is on the TTC subway maintenance. Madam Auditor, are you aware that the TTC just completed an audit of the subway and streetcar maintenance by the International Association of Transit Professionals?
Through the chair, yes, I am aware that there was an evaluation done. I don't know that we've received a report yet, but that would be part of why we pushed the timing out to the horizon as opposed to doing it sooner.
Thank you. Just out of curiosity, what is your report planning on looking at that was not, or have you not reviewed that yet?
Yes, through the chair, so that would be part of the planning. So we have not done that at this point.
So if there is, I guess, overlap between the report that was just completed and you're satisfied with management's responses, which are now public, would it be, would it perhaps make the need for an additional audit of the TTC subway maintenance less urgent?
So through the chair, that's something that we would consider as part of the audit planning. I can't comment at this stage.
Okay. And could you just please go over what the TTC audit for the electric buses, what exactly are you looking at?
Yes, 1 second. Maybe. So this audit will review the procurement, operation, and maintenance of electric buses to identify potential service improvements and opportunities. Again, we have not started that, and so as part of the audit planning phase, that's when we would determine what our audit scope and objectives are to solidify that.
Thank you very much. And final question, we had a deputant talking about the need for an audit of the shelter support system. I see on the 2026 work plan, Housing Secretariat supportive housing. Could you just expand on what you will be looking at in that audit?
1 second. So through the chair, we've done a number of audits in the area of housing. So this is a continuation of a series of audits along that continuum. So this audit may include an evaluation of the oversight systems and processes the city has put in place to deliver supportive rental housing, including reviewing eligibility for supportive housing, oversight of service delivery partners, and the outcomes achieved in providing supportive rental opportunities to residents.
Okay, so just to be clear, this is not shelter support. This is different.
It's different than shelters.
Great. And finally, could you just expand on what you are looking for with the solid waste management services contract management of collections and litter operations?
Yeah, so through the chair, this audit is currently in progress in the fieldwork phase. And so we have focused on contract management of outsourced collections and litter operations.
And when you say litter, are you talking garbage on the ground?
Yes, it does include garbage collection, but only on the contracted out services, not the garbage collection performed by in-house staff.
Okay, only on contracted services. Okay, thank you very much. Those are all my questions.
Hang on, we just want to finish the round.
Yep.
So I'm going to ask a couple of questions. Madam Auditor, there were a couple of things brought up today. And the first one, there was some conversation around what happens when the circumstances change. And I think Councillor Fletcher was alluding to that the capital projects process has changed over at TCHC. How do you do, I guess, in-year or in-process assessments to determine whether or not the items that are on your project list right now for the next couple of years still need to go forward? Do you reassess them just knowing how precious resources are? And could you just tell us generally how your process works to even get an audit subject onto this list with respect to risk assessments?
Yes, so through you, Chair. So as I mentioned in my presentation, we do a citywide risk and opportunities assessment and consider all the risk factors that I've noted in the appendix of our report, such as financial significance, public interest, internal controls, and we do consider timing as well. And as I mentioned, there is also flexibility in my work plan. So you'll notice sometimes we've had something on the horizon for a couple of years, and that's because there's been another priority that's come up that we need to do something else sooner. And then sometimes we have something on the plan that ends up getting deferred. And sometimes that can be because the division or agency has taken action and the timing just doesn't work. But many times we go in and we're told the timing doesn't work. And so we evaluate that as part of our audit planning phase as well, when we actually go in and see what has been done and can we still add value by still doing audit work. And it may also involve an adjustment to our scope of what we were originally thinking, but we always make sure that there's still value when we do an audit.
So council has formal and informal ways to suggest that you take a look at something. The formal, of course, is codified and requires a significant vote at council, but this committee can make recommendations. We can also make them independently to you as individual councilors through a letter or a memo, a variety of things. But how do you work those into the mix of assessments? Or is that a difficult question to answer? I don't know.
No, so through you, Chair, so that's definitely part of the consideration in the prioritization is the input that I receive from councillors, whether it's a motion to consider something, and all of the motions made to date have been considered, or whether it's something received more informally. All of that is part of the input that goes into the risk assessment and developing this plan.
And if we put something heavy into your in basket, something else has to fall out the bottom.
Correct.
Because your resources are limited.
Yes.
But you wouldn't be able to tell us what that is today. I guess it's here and now is the assessment of what the lowest risk is?
So through you, Chair, it would be something that we haven't started yet that would be deferred, but I don't know what that is at this point.
Okay. And so the speaker today pointed out that the shelter and housing system is, I think it's the third largest line item on our budget. And certainly lots of audit work in the past, lots of moving parts, lots of contracts with different people. How do you weigh the complexity of that and the points that the person made in terms of your overall plan?
So through you, Chair, financial significance is definitely one of the risk factors, and also it deals with vulnerable populations as well. So definitely those are considerations as part of our risk assessment. And as you mentioned, we've done many audits of in the area of housing and shelters, and there are still many outstanding recommendations for the shelters division, and many are related to financial management.
Thank you. Second round, I think, is from Councillor Fletcher. You've requested that. We're going to go to a second round, Councillor Fletcher, on your request.
Thank
and
you.
the clerk has let me know that we have TCHC available for questions.
Oh, that's great. Thank you. It's on the Solid Waste Management Services Contract Management of Collections and Litter. I didn't quite get a clear answer on what you're calling litter, please. What is that? Is that a collections and litter contract through an RFP? Or are they separate things? How are you considering those?
So when we mention litter operation, it includes the residential home garbage collection. That's what we're referring to as litter operations.
Litter is residential home home collection?
That's what we included in our audit scope.
Sorry, I think we have to be clearer there. Collections and litter operations. What is a litter operation compared to a collection operation, please?
It also included facilities collection as well.
I'm sorry.
It included the facilities collection as well, but so we're focused on things that are outsourced in terms of contract management. So
What's outsourced? Give me the list, please, that you're working from.
It's mainly focused on the collection of garbage at residential, and is it also business?
I'm sorry, it's hard to hear you.
No, go ahead, say. So it's focused on the outsourced contracts of the residential garbage collection.
Which is Districts 1 and Districts 2?
It includes the districts that are not the collection that are not performed by in-house staff. So the ones that are
Sorry, which ones are
TFL.
those? District 1 and District 2? I think that's an easy question.
Yes, that's true.
And what is litter? Is that the RFP? Or why do you have litter in there? That is not a residential collection. I don't understand that title.
I think that's the term that's being used by the division.
By the division, who's here from
afterwards.
solid waste? Is there a contract for, residential collection in District 1 and District 2 is massive. Litter collection is different, and I'd like to know why they're put together by solid waste management. Obviously, somebody must be here from solid waste management because their name is on this list. Maybe it's the name of the RFP, I don't know. They're obviously two separate investigations? Do you
Sure.
not see
I'm
them
not
as
sure
two
if they're
separate
here.
ones?
The focus is on the contracts.
Well, that's not clear here, is it?
We
The
can get more
DCM is
details
available.
after.
Chair, we don't have someone from solid waste here, but I can take that back and hopefully work with Auditor General to clarify that definition.
For when?
I'll do it before council.
Councillor Fletcher, are you satisfied with that as an undertaking to get you the information?
Sure. I
Thank you.
just find that that is, if that's what they're calling it, then I'd like to know what that investigation is going to be there. And on your pay it investigation, where do you stand with that investigation? Did you get more money for that? I can't remember.
So through the chair, yes, we did have that included as part of our budget for contracted specialists, and it is in progress. And we are aiming to report out to the February 2026 Audit Committee meeting on that
Feb
report.
2026. Can I just ask, when you find something so irregular as the pay it, I was surprised at that time, and I actually have rewatched the council meeting, that isn't something that you would automatically put into your next year's budget, that we had to ask. Is that your standard practice?
So through the chair, I included it in last year's budget request so that I would have sufficient budget for the contracted specialists. I did not have sufficient budget otherwise to do it.
But I'm asking that that wasn't a priority, it had to get added. I think that's what I'm asking, is how you would prioritize something where you found an incredible discrepancy. Would you not prioritize that as something that you would put to the top of your list rather than have to ask for extra money? That's my surprise here. As one of our accountability officers directly accountable to council, I'm finding that difficult, and I'd like to know your process. Once you find something so egregious, do you just wait for council to ask you, or do you proactively put that in?
So through the chair, in general, we would proactively do an investigation where we feel it is warranted. We had done the performance audit of Pay It and had a number of recommendations in terms of the city not following the process for an unsolicited proposal. And we are now in the midst of doing that investigation.
Did you not find that that was a serious breach and perhaps needed more investigation without council asking you? I'm surprised, as you can tell.
Through the chair, I can't comment on that right now.
I'm sorry?
Through the chair, I cannot comment on that.
Your decision not to advance that without council, you can't comment on that?
As I mentioned, when we find something that is egregious, we would proactively do an investigation.
So you didn't find the results egregious then?
I cannot comment on that due to confidentiality.
Well, we can go in camera if we need to. I'll speak about that.
Councillor Fletcher, your time has elapsed on this. Do you have additional questions for a
Yes,
third round?
TCHC is coming. I have
TCHC
questions, yeah.
is online.
Yeah, who's there?
We have two names, Yves Chung and Noah Slater. Are you ready to ask questions of them? All right, go ahead, please.
Are they on camera or just online?
Online.
Okay, can we hear their voices so I know that they can hear us?
There's someone on camera right now.
Thank you. Can't hear him.
I'm sorry, I can't read the screen who it is. If
It's
we
Noah
just get
Slater.
just get an introduction and a sound check would be great.
We can't hear him. Your mic is on mute, Mr. Slater. You're muted. Yeah, he's talking and we can't hear him, so yeah.
Councillor Fletcher, this is Yves Chung. Can you hear me?
Can hear you, but I can't hear
Yeah.
Mr. Slater.
Sorry. Unfortunately, I got a new computer. My camera's not working, but I could hear you and you could hear me.
I'd like to hear Mr. Slater because he is actually doing state of good repair, so we have to get him on audio.
Yes, Councillor.
We have him on video.
Okay, we're at an impasse. I'm going to suggest we stand the item down.
Sure.
See if we can get the technical issues sorted out. If
Thank
I could ask the TCHC staff to stand by and work with the clerks, and we'll come back to resume the questioning and go to speaking. So, Councillor Myers, did you have a point of order?
Not a point of order, but I was wondering if I could ask some additional questions.
Great. So never mind what I just said. We'll continue the questions and buy us a few minutes. And if we can get the audio connected, great. If not, we'll stand the item down. Councillor Myers. And Councillor Nunziata, second on the list.
Okay,
Please proceed.
Thank you, Chair, through you. So my question is on the city's Smart Track program and on the Transit Expansion Office in general. Does the Auditor General have, has the Auditor General ever looked at the Smart Track program?
So through the chair, to my knowledge, we have not.
Thank you. Has the Auditor General ever looked at the Transit Expansion Office?
Again, I do not believe we have looked at that.
Thank you. If the Auditor General were aware that an office had spent significant amounts of money on designing a program that it did not have the money to implement, would that be of concern? And I'm limited in what I can say because the information is confidential.
So through the chair, in general, yes.
Generally, without going into specifics, what is the trigger for the Auditor General to look into something? Obviously, if $1,000 is spent, that probably doesn't warrant an Auditor General report. But what is the trigger where, and this is sort of picking up where Councillor Fletcher was going with the pay it, what is the trigger where the Auditor General's office says this needs to be looked at?
So through the chair, as I mentioned, we've got our risk and opportunities assessment and many different risk factors that we consider, including financial significance. I also have to consider my
Is there a
mandate
quantitative number
as
for the
well.
financial significance?
There's not a specific number or threshold. And for investigations, it can be a much lower dollar amount because then it's more about integrity and culture. But the other part is my mandate, and so I'm limited to the City of Toronto. And so if the province is involved in some way, then I would need to, it would either not be in my mandate, or I would need to do a collaborative audit with the Ontario Auditor General, which has not yet been done before, but I am open to giving that a try if she is willing to.
Thank you. And just to be clear, Smart Track is entirely funded by the City of Toronto.
Okay.
The stations will be owned by the province, but it is completely 100% funded by the City of Toronto and voted on by City Council. So that would be within your mandate and your purview, correct?
I'd have to double check on that
Okay.
in terms of the provincial involvement.
Okay. Okay. Fair enough. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Councillor Myers. Councillor Nunziata.
Just one question. So you mentioned Toronto Parking Authority. So what would your investigation be as far as Toronto Parking Authority? Which area will you be auditing?
So through the chair, at this point on my plan, I have our follow-up of Toronto Parking Authority, which includes our previous work that we did in terms of the machines and revenue operations and other areas. And so that would be part of that. If there's any red flags that are noticed, then I would consider additional work.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. I'm just going to ask Mr. Slater if you can hear us. We're going to do an audio check and we'll make a decision whether or not we move on with questions. Good morning, Mr. Slater. We can see you. We cannot hear you thus far. Can you unmute? Okay, so we still have persistent audio issues. I'm going to recommend to the committee that we...
Hi. Sorry. Hi. Is that working?
Miracles happen. Welcome to the Audit Committee. Councillor Fletcher, you're up for questions. TCHC is online. Please proceed.
Yes, I just wondered for your staff time, and I know you're fairly new to this role, but what kind of staff time are you now devoting to this audit?
Thank you for the question, and to the chair, thanks for that, Councillor. We I can report back after this meeting with hours that we've spent. We are in a fairly intensive period where we've just completed our interviews, our initial interviews. We've got the terms of reference and now the audit's underway. So a fair amount of time helping with collection of reports, helping with collection of materials. And I can report back after the committee with a substantiated hour time from the staff.
So you could look at, that could come to council then. We could get that information as to the amount of staff time now, and if it's affecting in any way the implementation of your state of good repair.
Yes, we can speak to that and give a set of hours that we've committed to working with the Auditor General's office on this.
Yes, great. Thank you very much for that. And that's what I really needed to hear, just to understand the impact on trying to get the job done when I think that might not have been as fulsome as it is now with the new leadership team at Toronto Community Housing. Correct? I won't ask you to say correct or not. I think that. So that's okay. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Councillor Fletcher. Are there any other questions before we move to speaking? To speak on the item? Councillor Myers.
Thank you. Through you, Chair, and I have a motion.
Just going to pause your time.
Thank you. So the motion states that City Council requests the Auditor General to give consideration to including in a future work plan and an investigation into smart track implementation. I want to always, of course, thank the Auditor General and her team for the incredible work they do in keeping our city divisions and agencies accountable. I think that as TTC Chair and as someone who follows these transit projects quite closely, because they have a direct effect on TTC operations and the lives of millions of people, I think there needs to be an investigation into this smart track implementation. Significant amounts of money, public money, Toronto taxpayer money was spent on this program, and the results are not optimal based on the amount of money spent. There is also considerable concerns over how decision-making was made regarding where stations were placed based on what was promised in an election campaign and what actually resulted for Torontonians, and whether this was the best use of public money given the other competing resources, particularly for the TTC's own subway maintenance and bus operations. I'd also really strongly urge the Auditor General to consider the value of spending of what occurred here, where significant amounts of money were spent designing stations that there was no money to then complete building. And I understand there is a provincial component. However, I will emphasize this was completely a City of Toronto decision. This was completely City of Toronto money. Yes, the province did agree to pay for certain costs, but only at a certain amount. Which led to the situation where certain stations were designed, but they were never actually had the money to be completed. And I think that definitely needs to be looked into so that this does not happen again, as this division is also responsible for building the Eglinton East LRT, which is a $4.3 billion line, and the Waterfront East LRT, which is about a $2.5 billion line. So I think there needs to be certain procedures and policies in place to make sure something like this does not happen again. Thank you. And I'm happy to take any questions.
Thank you, Councillor Myers. Any questions of the mover?
I have a question.
Question mover, Councillor Fletcher.
Is there a reason why you haven't directly requested a motion of this committee to add that to a more current work plan and move something else out? Or ask for other money in order to initiate what I consider to be an important role for the Auditor General in this 22 stations to 5 stations to stations without any
3 stations. We're now at 3 stations.
For 3 stations, and the amount that's been spent.
$1 billion.
So it's been $1 billion, and
That's
No one
$300
has-
million.
No one has
is
asked
vacant.
for that until now, and I gather that it's not anyway, so it's not on a work plan. Are you looking to put that up higher? Can you-
I would definitely consider that to be put higher. I would like to give some discretion to the Auditor General to decide where that would fit in her work plan. I'm also very open to requesting council add additional money to put this in the 2026 work plan.
But would you request, simply consider that before council, the Auditor General looks at something that could be moved down to 27 or 28 and to initiate that immediately?
I'm happy to consider that a friendly amendment, yes.
Well, there's nothing friendly because you have to write it down.
Well, I'll ask the clerk to write it,
Yes.
if they don't
But
mind.
having heard what you've said, I do think it's extremely timely. And with all the other transit needs, I don't know if there's any deals or anything that were made that way, but it's a problem. That would be a committee request, Mr. Chair, of course.
So Councillor Fletcher, the auditor advised it's implicit in the motion. If we request something new, it implies that something is deprioritized.
Correct. And I think I suggested to Councillor Myers that his motion would ask the Auditor General to determine what should be deprioritized and that this would be an extremely high priority. And I think it should have been long ago over many other things because it's a massive, massive amount of money.
Mr. Clerk, if you can give me some advice on where we're at with the status of that and if it's being amended, but otherwise, right now, I'll just check if there's someone else that wants to speak on this item. Councillor Crisanti.
Well, I have a motion I'm waiting for. I don't know if clerk has it. That's,
The answer is yes. Go ahead, sir.
okay.
And just say.
Yeah, so there's my motion, and you heard earlier when I was asking questions of the Auditor General with respect to the part of her 27 work plan, which I believe is a very critical part of keeping our system moving in good repair and moving effectively, so we motivate more people to take our the TTC, the subway system particularly. And she seemed very amenable to look at it and consider moving this to the 26 work plan versus the 27. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Crisanti. Are there any other members wishing to speak on this item?
Can I just ask a question? So, as we heard from the auditor, if we bump any audits up,
They're not even on here.
there are other audits that are ongoing that will be taken off the list, which I'm concerned about. So,
So
like,
this is,
do we know what we're doing here?
is this
Yeah.
a question of the clerk? I mean,
Well, no,
I mean, I
actually-
think I can answer that. The auditor, I asked that question off microphone.
Yeah.
The auditor agreed that implicit to any requests for additional work, it implies that something will get bumped off
Yeah.
the list.
And I think we need to know what's going to be bumped off before we move these motions.
I don't know that that could be determined on the floor here. Madam Auditor?
Point of order, we're making that amendment right now so that Madam Auditor will report back to the council on what her recommendations are for deprioritizing 2026 audits or switching the order.
Next week's
Okay.
council, correct? Next week?
Correct, yes.
Okay.
So,
Well, then we'll deal with it then.
so let me check, because I want to manage this item if we need to stand it down. Is there anyone else that wants to speak to it? Okay, Councillor Fletcher.
My microphone. I'm not used to pressing my own button here, Francis. Just in looking for a spot for that for 2026 or 2027, and I think we do have some important ones here, trying to find some of that other money and how much to spend. I think we could move the ferries to 2028 because I would really think that that had been thoroughly reviewed over and over and over again. We understand what happened. We've taken corrective action. It's all done. It's going to fleet. So I don't think that is in danger of happening again in the Parks Department because it's no longer there. So to me, that's one that could go 228. Yesterday at executive, we're clear that we've actually formally moving that out of a parks division for purchasing a marine fleet, and it's going to fleet. So I would think that Councillor Myers, your request could move into that slot in 2027. And I'm sorry, Madam Auditor, but I think we feel strongly about certain things and you've put your work plan forward, and I'm assuming that you're interested in hearing our opinion based on what we know about all of these things. So rather than do a post-mortem, some of these things are active and live, that isn't. So that's my suggestion for you, Councillor Myers, and I do think we should get this right, Mr. Chair, so if you want to stand that down and we can go to some of the other ones, that would be fine with me too. Pardon me?
Sorry, we're just making sure this is in order. I think we're close. Otherwise, we don't come back for a little while to this item.
How do you mean a little while?
We have
Hours or
another item
months?
that's going to take a bit of time.
Yeah, that's fine. Maybe that's a good idea.
If you could
Should we
stand
stand it down?
Chair, and just to note that under the City of Toronto Act, the Auditor General cannot be directed to delete an audit from her plan. So, and it'll take some time to figure out the prioritization if something is on. So I'm not sure whether I can meet this timing or not.
I see. I would say, Madam Auditor, I think you'd be interested in what the committee and city council had to say about your priorities. I know we can't direct you, but we could suggest to you, and I would invite you, I'm sure you're interested in our opinions, are you not?
Through the chair, of course I'm interested in your opinions. I'm here to assist city
So
council.
I know we can't direct,
Yes.
but we can have strong opinions, which I'm sure that you will consider.
And just to note that if there is a 2/3 majority resolution vote, you can direct for something to be added.
So I'm going to check with the clerk. Do we have a motion in order? And is it deliverable, or do we need to stand it down to? Okay, so we'll stand the item down. Thank you.
I'll have some language to
We'll take a
consider
minute here to get this
changing.
fixed. Do we need a recess on this? Okay, we'll go to item 10.3, which is the audit of Toronto Water, Stormwater and Wastewater contract management. We do have a presentation from the Auditor General.
Okay, so we'll get started. Thank you, Chair. So this presentation covers the results of our Toronto Water's stormwater and wastewater contract management. Here with me today are Ariane Chan, Assistant Auditor General, and team members Irene Hugh, Daniel Dew, and Nizam Chowdhury. Thank you to my team for their excellent work on this audit. I'd also like to thank management and staff, Lou DiGeronimo and his team at Toronto Water, particularly Lena Deanda, Gary Boychuk, Edwin Eisen, Jas Saroy, and Reggie Alexander. Thank you for your cooperation and assistance during this audit. We'll start off with some background and discuss why this audit matters. Then we'll cover our audit objectives, key audit findings and recommendations, and finish with closing remarks. Our audit covered Toronto Water's local sewer, force main, and pump station state of good repair projects. As shown in the picture, sewer mains transport stormwater and wastewater to pump stations, which is then pumped through force mains to wastewater treatment plants. When local sewers and force mains are repaired, road closures are often required to allow work to be carried out through access points or maintenance manholes, which would be public-facing. Pump stations are located on city property and may be less visible to the public, but are important assets in the city's sewer system. Just to note that our audit scope did not include projects managed by the Engineering and Construction Services Division, such as trunk sewers, which are large capacity sewers that collect stormwater and wastewater from local sewers. And the audit scope also did not include emergency repairs or new capital stormwater and wastewater projects, such as those under the Basement Flooding Protection Program. Toronto Water engages and oversees construction contractors and consultants to carry out local sewer, force main, and pump station state of good repair projects. Contractors are responsible for all construction-related tasks, while consultants are responsible for overall project and contractor management. The work of consultants includes conducting site inspections and clarifying contract and design specifications when contractors encounter a problem. Consultants also review and respond to contractor submissions, including requests for information, contract change requests, claim notices and delay claims, and payment applications. The consultants also make recommendations to Toronto Water project managers related to approving proposed changes to work scope, project schedule, and progress payments. This audit is important because maintaining the city's sewer systems in a state of good repair is essential for providing reliable sewer services to Toronto residents and businesses and maximizing a return on assets. Aging infrastructure and lack of maintenance can lead to asset failures. The objective of this audit was to assess whether Toronto Water has systems and processes in place to ensure the state of good repair stormwater and wastewater projects for local sewers, force mains, and pump stations are delivered in accordance with the expected outcomes and terms and conditions defined in these contracts, as well as the city's policies and procedures. So specifically, we aim to answer the following two questions. Number one, does Toronto Water's contract management oversight ensure the work of consultants and contractors meets the expected outcomes and terms and conditions defined in the contracts? And number two, are contract payments supported, accurate, and authorized by Toronto Water in accordance with the city's policies and procedures? As a result of our audit, we identified 3 key areas for Toronto Water to improve its capital project contract management. First is to ensure that projects remain on schedule and that all time extensions and assessment of liquidated damages are properly supported and documented. Second is to improve adherence to the change directives process, ensuring change orders are properly documented, analyzed, and tracked. Lastly, we identified several areas where Toronto Water needs to implement better performance management to ensure that consultants and contractors are held accountable for their contractual obligations. In terms of our first key area of findings, we found that many projects took longer than originally planned to complete. Between January 2020 to March 2025, Toronto Water oversaw 29 sewer, force main, and pump station state of good repair projects. Of these, 18 had been completed and 11 were still ongoing at the time of our audit. As shown in the figure on this slide, 94% or 17 of the 18 completed projects did not meet the originally planned substantial performance date. For all 17 projects, there were requests and approvals to extend their deadlines, including one project that was extended by almost 4 years. In the figure, the blue bars show the originally planned contract duration, and the orange bars show the length of schedule overruns and approved extensions. Specifically, we noted that all 15 sewer projects took longer than originally planned, with the extension durations ranging from 1 to 12 months. One force main project was delayed by 5 months, while the other reached substantial performance as planned, and a pump station project was delayed by almost 4 years. We selected 5 of the 29 projects for a detailed review to understand the potential root causes and impact of delays, evaluate whether decisions to extend deadlines were reasonable, and to assess whether management has controls in place to minimize delays. As shown in the figure on this slide, you can see that 4 out of the 5 projects ran over the originally planned timeline by approximately 2 to 13 months, and one ongoing project has already exceeded its scheduled completion date by 17 months at the time of our audit. Toronto Water does not have a system to track project delays, identify systemic root causes of delays, or analyze delay trends across projects for lessons learned. However, staff advised that the main reasons for project schedule extensions were typically due to unforeseen site conditions, including unexpected subsurface discoveries and conflict with other ongoing city projects, authorized scope changes, and coordination with utilities. Also, in some cases, Toronto Water advised that they strategically added additional work to take advantage of favorable weather. Delays can cause public inconvenience, financial exposure for the city, and increased risk of leaks and environmental contamination. It is important for Toronto Water to have a system that provides information needed to understand which delays are caused by factors that Toronto Water can control and to work to minimize those. This helps to improve accountability and timely delivery. In addition, we found that contractor requests to extend project deadlines were not always supported by adequate documentation. Our 5 sample projects had a total of 43 approved time extension requests, of which we randomly selected and reviewed 12. None of the 12 samples had an updated project schedule attached, and 3 of the 12 had no supporting documentation to substantiate delay events or the impact was not clearly explained. Despite documentation not being adequate, Toronto Water still approved these time extension requests based on consultants' recommendations. We also found that the rationale for not assessing liquidated damages was not always documented as required by the City Manual. If time extensions are approved without sufficient support and proper verification, the actual cause of a delay cannot be accurately determined and allocated to the proper party. This makes it difficult for the city to claim liquidated damages and recover financial losses due to project delays. For example, for the pump station project, the city paid $2.85 million to account for material and supply price escalation, along with additional consultant fees resulting from delays. Contractors may also file delay claims against the city, and for the force main project, the city paid over $260,000 to the contractor to compensate for delays, while an additional $3.5 million for the pump station project is currently under dispute. I'll now pass it over to Ariane Chan, Assistant Auditor General, to walk through the next key areas of our findings.
Thank you, Madam Auditor General. For the second key area of our finding, we found that 16 of the 18 completed projects were on budget. A project's budget consists of 3 components: the contract's base scope costs, a provisional allowance, and a contingency allowance. The provisional allowance covers items that might or might not actually be used or with a known quantity but can still be specified with enough detail at the time of tender to request a price. The contingency allowance is for unplanned items outside the base scope cost and provisional allowance. With all 18 projects, while all 18 projects had a large number of change orders, all but 2 were sufficiently covered by the provisional and contingency allowances. However, we found that in 23 of 35 change orders sampled, work was performed before the issuance of a change order. 18 of those 23 samples lacked evidence of the city's approval because the change directives process was not followed, making it challenging to defend against legal disputes. We also noted that 57% of change orders sampled and 91% of sampled progress payments lacked certain required documentation, making it difficult for the city to assess their validity, increasing legal and financial risk. We found that this happened because there was no training or refresher training provided to project managers on the city's requirements. We also found that Toronto Water has not adequately analyzed its change order data. Analyzing change orders provides useful information to better monitor and plan the scope, budget, and schedule for current and future projects. For example, for the 5 projects we reviewed, we found that unforeseen site conditions and contract item quantity changes accounted for most of the change orders. Some unforeseen site conditions were due to conflicts with other capital asset work in the city, indicating a need to improve interdivisional coordination. While unforeseen site conditions are not unusual for these types of projects, a high number of change orders could indicate a need to better consider commonly recurring issues and provisional items during the project planning phase. Toronto Water needs a centralized way to track and analyze this information. Lastly, in one of the 5 projects we reviewed, although the contract expressly stated that no inflation-related price adjustments were allowed, the contractor was paid $442,000 for price adjustments on materials and supplies. Although there were reasonable explanations for a price adjustment given the COVID-19 pandemic and supply chain issues, our review found that the city's contract template does not include a standard price adjustment clause. Toronto Water advised that the division is participating in a multi-divisional working group led by the Purchasing and Material Management Division and with Legal and Engineering and Construction Services Division to establish standard citywide contract clauses for price escalations. We also found that on one project in our sample, the cumulative markup charged by the contractor and subcontractor on change orders exceeded contractual limits. On this slide, we included an example of a contractor quote to the city and the subcontractor invoice to illustrate our observations from the sample review. Specifically, we observed that the contractor applied a 15% markup on behalf of his subcontractors in his quote to the city, even when the subcontractor did not charge a markup or already included it in the lump sum price. The contractor charged an additional 10% markup, resulting in a combined 25% markup. However, the contract term states that the cumulative markup for contractor, subcontractor, supplier, and sub-subcontractor is limited to 10% only. Based on Toronto Water's own review, the city paid $122,000 in overpayments resulting from the markup overage that the consultants did not catch during the review of contractor invoices. According to staff, Toronto Water has begun taking action to recover the overpayment since we brought the issue to their attention. For the third and final area of findings, we identified several additional areas where management oversight of consultants and contractors needs improvement. During our audit, we found the inspection reports were not consistent among the consultants or consistent with the city's template to document site inspections. This resulted in incomplete records. Visits to different work sites were not separately reported, and many records were missing the required sign-offs by inspectors and contractors. We also noted delayed responses from the consultants to contractors. For the 5 projects we reviewed, we found the average consultant response time ranged from 5 to 35 working days. For 3 of the 5 projects we reviewed, the consultants did not meet the required 5-day response time for the majority of the contractor information requests. In 10 extreme cases, consultants took more than 4 months to respond to those requests. For progress payments, we found 32 out of 35 samples did not have all the required supporting documentation. Most commonly, the contractor's daily work records were missing in the majority of our samples. There were also instances of other missing key project and insurance documents. And we also found that the contractor and consultant performance evaluations were not completed for some and completed late for others. Toronto Water has limited performance measures to drive and monitor performance of consultants, contractors, and the overall state of good repair program. Toronto Water needs to strengthen vendor accountability and oversight to ensure all contract changes and progress payments are adequately supported, diligently reviewed, and approved. I will now pass it back to Madame Auditor General for her closing remarks.
Thank you, Ariane. So overall, we found that Toronto Water must strengthen accountability and oversight over contractors and consultants and improve its change order management, interdivisional coordination, and performance monitoring. In summary, our 12 recommendations to Toronto Water focus on clarifying consultants' scope of work and deliverables in the contracts and city policies and procedures, greater staff oversight of consultants and contractors and strengthening performance evaluation processes, analyzing change order root causes and trends to improve monitoring and management of project budget and schedule, and lastly, coordinating with city divisions, agencies, and corporations to improve citywide capital project delivery. Management has agreed to all of these recommendations. And I'd like to just highlight a couple of the recommendations. As noted in Recommendation 11D, it is worthwhile for Toronto Water to conduct a cost-benefit analysis to assess the optimal balance between using consultants and in-house staff for contract management and some site inspections. My understanding is that this analysis has been started. And one other recommendation to highlight, number 6, on improving interdivisional coordination, which recommends that all city divisions keep appropriate capital project information updated in the city's database, that's TO InView, and request relevant agencies and corporations to reinforce or develop processes that will give the city timely and accurate capital project information to improve coordination among stakeholders. Implementing the 12 recommendations will help Toronto Water improve the effectiveness and efficiency of its contract management oversight of state of good repair projects. And while this audit focused on the state of good repair projects specifically for sewers, force mains, and pump stations, many of our recommendations can also be applied in managing other capital projects at Toronto Water. And this report and its recommendations may also be helpful to other city divisions, agencies, and corporations with responsibility for managing capital projects. Thank you. That concludes our presentation, and we're now available for any questions you may have.
Thank you, Madam Auditor. Are there questions of the Auditor General or staff? Councillor Nunziata?
So, okay, one for the auditor. As you mentioned, one of the contractors had overage, and so what is the status of us getting that reimbursement back?
So through the chair, that would be a question for
Okay,
management or legal.
Okay, I'll ask Lou then.
My understanding it has been started.
Yes, through you, Mr. Chair. Yes, we've already identified the contractor and the consultants, and we are working through making the final adjustments, but we will recover that money.
For sure. Okay, then Lou, I have to ask you a question. So I don't understand. Who was responsible for this oversight on the contractor?
Through you, Mr. Chair.
Yeah.
On this particular one, that was a clear error on the part of the consultant as well as our staff who did not catch it. So this was the one instance that was picked up, and it was human error. It should have been picked up, and we appreciate that the auditor identified it. And we're going to do a review of the procedures that are in place to double check against margins that are in the contract terms as well as the submissions. So that is the situation. It was an error by the consultant first, and then our staff that didn't pick it up either.
Yeah, but there seems to be quite a bit here. So are we still using that same consultant then?
Through you, Mr. Chair, it was only one instance, and yes, we're still using that consultant.
So, well, if they made an error, why would we use the same consultant?
Through you, Mr. Chair,
I mean,
again,
it's costing the city money. Like, I just don't understand.
it was an error that occurred for the vast majority of the work. There's tens of millions of dollars here that were accounted for properly, as the Auditor General said. 16 of the projects came in under budget, and were managed. There were time delays, but there was an error that happens. It's human error, and it got picked up.
Okay, and so you're in support of the recommendations from the auditor?
Through you, Mr. Chair, yes, we're in support of all the recommendations. The one finding that I would say is that going through the audit was very helpful in identifying the need for us to update a lot of our procedures and our manuals that we use, because we haven't done that for some time. And going through the COVID time period, there is a need to change those manuals because our practices are very different. Yet the manuals are older. So that's one of the key things we have to do. Second thing that jumped out is the training component. Once you update that, what we need is a more formal training program in place. We've been using mentoring and informal training for many years, and the recommendations, when you look at them, point to the fact that we need to do annual and periodic training not with just existing employees, but also to help when we onboard a lot of new employees.
Okay. So why is it that we haven't done that in years then? What was the reason for that?
Through you, Mr. Chair, a lot of those programs and reviews, as well as training, was shut down during the COVID years. So there was 3 or 4 years where we were not doing the same type of training, that in-person training and that mentoring training. We are starting that back up again, and this audit was taken during that time period. If you look at the years of those contracts, it was 20, one of them, the big one, the pumping station one, it was tendered in 2020. It went through 21, 22, 23, right at the height of all of the issues we were seeing with COVID and lockdowns and supply chain issues. So it highlighted the need that we have to update to the practices that we have in place today. And that's something that we're going to undertake.
So are you saying that during COVID, we weren't really doing anything?
We were asked to shut down in-person meetings, which is what training was a lot of in-person meetings, a lot of mentoring, and those programs were halted during that time period.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Are there further questions? Councillor Fletcher.
Yes, the value of some of these contracts is quite significant for some of this work, correct? Like sewer project number 1. What are the values for
Yeah,
some
so I can give you a quick range through you,
Yeah.
Mr. Chair. The vast majority of the contracts that were looked at are sewer relining contracts. So the rehabilitation program, about 15 of those, they ranged from contract value of about, say, $2 to $3 million. Generally 5, 6, 7 million range, with one as high as 17 million. And the pumping station was the largest one. It's about $20 million range. And the force main projects were about 5 and 9 million range.
So really and truly, they're not some of the ones that we've approved here of $1 billion or 590 million. They're smaller contracts.
Through you, Mr. Chair, yes, and that's one of the findings that we picked up on is the documents that we use are typically the ones that you're describing, the much larger construction documents, and the rehabilitation work is pretty much more operational type contract. We're in the field doing relining work, and so it doesn't really lend itself to that same structured process with change orders and the length of time. So we're going to have to look at changing our manuals for the linear jobs that are rehabilitation, because they move much more quickly. So this is a key finding that I picked up when we reviewed the delays. The Auditor General's work is accurate. When you look at the language of existing procedures and contracts, what we do have to do is amend that with the type of work that we're doing.
Just to the Auditor General or the Deputy City Manager or the City Manager, that what it sounds like to me is that everything's been in one bucket rather than there's maintenance work, which is the sewer relining, which is a different type of work than a state of good repair, a very big project, the pumping station, something else.
That's
because
correct.
generally when you're looking at, let's say, go back to TCHC, there's maintenance that you're doing, but once the elevators need to be new, once all of the HVAC needs to be changed, that's a different category. But it sounds like you didn't have 2 categories, you've just had one.
We have multiple programs in Stormwater, and we're using similar language for those varied programs, and that's something that we're going to have to pull apart, use different language for different types of contracts.
I guess I'm going to ask the Auditor General then your advice about that, because for City Council, we're very focused on 2 types of programs. One is I've got to fix that because it's not working well, small, repaint the whole building. The other is we need a brand new HVAC system here, large projects. Is that a distinction that you're suggesting would be easy here for Toronto Water to use? They're not using it in that standard method that we all understand?
So through the chair, we do not have a recommendation related to categorizing things. We did look at state of good repair projects, so not the smaller type of maintenance, not emergency repairs.
So $5 million is not a major project. that's a small project for you in your multi-billion-dollar process.
That's correct. And if we look at the timeframes, a lot of the contracts were scheduled to be completed within a year, year and a half time frame, shorter duration, versus say the pumping station, which was a multi-year project. There were 7 pumping stations all lumped together. A lesson learned, in fact, a couple years ago, we pulled apart that procedure, and the last pumping station contract that went out only included 2. Because when we have 7, you get one project that's out of the queue and holds up the whole contract. So, for example, the
Yeah,
one.
okay, I got it.
Yeah.
Thank you. I'm just going to ask the CFO just about reporting in that way, in kind of a standard capital repair reporting. Is there something that from the Auditor General that you could be a little clearer, or Toronto Water could be just clear in those kinds of categories, and assuming that we have a large tunnel, that's this kind of project, we have a pumping station, critical repair, we're going to reline this sewer. Is that something, or am I off base on that?
To the chair, no, not off base. So we do look at different categories of assets. So when we report on our state of good repair, and specifically our state of good repair backlog, we work with each division to be able to break it down by asset type. And then the information is then presented based on what is the needs, what is the backlog associated with that specific asset or that asset type. We also distinguish between what is a capital repair, something that is adding value to the asset, versus what is a lesser repair that would flow through the operating budget.
Okay, so basically maintenance and capital work, fixing emergency work, etc. So I'm just not sure that. Okay,
Last
and
question.
then why these things took so much longer? Is it just that they took longer, or is there a contract management missing as well? I'll ask the auditor, and then I'll ask you.
Auditor first.
Last question.
Thanks. So through the chair, we did comment on what management has advised the reasons for the delays were, but there's nothing in terms of the information in the system to be able to identify those root causes, but they did advise us that they were due to unforeseen site conditions, including conflicts with other city ongoing work, approved scope changes, and then the last one, coordination with utilities was the other reason provided.
So I'm asking you, you found that, sorry, this is just, I'll finish up and then I don't need a second round.
Okay.
That contract management was well in hand, or it could be better, the contracts could be better management around delivery. Which one?
So through the chair, the whole summary is that there needs to be improved contract management of these projects, and
not
better
just
oversight of the consultants and the contractors.
Thank you.
Through you, Mr. Chair, we agree with that recommendation. I would just point out as an example, the one that went the longest time in duration, which is the pumping station, that was held up with an item that you were familiar with. It was the tunnel boring machine that got stuck in Old Mill.
Sorry.
That was right in the same location, so we could not start that other pumping station project for over 2 years until we dealt with that issue. That's an unforeseen situation, and that was direct impact to one of our contracts, this contract here.
So I'm sure the Auditor General put that in your report. You have that tunnel boring machine?
We didn't specifically include it in our report.
Oh, you didn't?
No.
Thank you, Councillor Fletcher. I have some questions.
Yes.
My first question is, there's something in the report about paid duty costs increasing significantly, and then the contractor marked them up. Why are paid duty costs, which effectively are a municipal service, getting marked up by the contractor and then charged back to us?
Through Mr. Chair, because the way the contract's worded, they provide that service. They engage that service as opposed to us paying directly. It's embedded in the scope of services they provide us. So it captures the markup when it's structured that way. We don't engage. The city is not engaging the paid duty officers. The contractor is.
So if we have the contractor take a building permit, do they mark up the cost to go do that? Are there other city services that they're buying as per the contract that they're marking up and selling back to us?
It depends on how the contract's structured. If you are shifting the responsibility for them to enter into those contracts or pay those fees, then it's potential that they could be subject to those markups.
And what value add does the contractor provide in a pass-through cost like paid duty?
The key thing is the coordination, because they are the ones that are in control of the job site, especially in the streets. So if we take the sewer lining projects that we're talking about, it's a lot of coordination with on roadways, and they are the ones that are scheduling the work for that day, and they then have to schedule the paid duty officers accordingly. If we tried to insert ourselves in that, we could get in the way of their scheduling and cause greater delays.
So yeah, the question was about inserting ourselves, but why would we accept in a contract that a contractor essentially buying a municipal service and then selling it back to us at a markup?
So my advice to you is that we could take that suggestion you make and refer to the enhancing capital coordination project that's being kicked off by ECS, and we're participating, and make that a standard condition that we can look at changing our contract terms across the whole city, not just in Toronto Water contracts.
So without having to write a motion, could I get a nod that that would be an undertaking, that in instances when a contractor is buying a service from the municipality, whether it's water or paid duty or whatever categories that are out there, that you take a close look on the value add that they provide on the markup in selling it right back to us?
Through you, Mr. Chair, yes, there's nods coming from the team that's leading that review.
Thank you. Consultants. So there are instances that the auditor has pointed out that they appear to not have met obligations. For example, taking a very long time to respond to an information request. Does that then cascade into costs to the city?
It could, if
right.
if it extends the time period of the construction job, a contractor could then make a delay claim. So it has the potential.
Right. So you spoke about a mistake earlier, but this is not responding in a timely manner. So do we then go back to the consultants that we pay a lot of money to recover then the costs that the city is now responsible to bear because they were late?
So typically what happens is if they make a submission for additional claims as the consultant, we will be arguing with them who was responsible for that delay, and that gets factored into the negotiations of any claim submission they make. What we do agree with the auditor, and very strongly with, is that we do need to improve our oversight of consultants, and that's going to be part of the review that we're taking with our staff, and on the training side of it as well, of how to consistently manage performance of consultants as well as contractors.
Okay, so to hear back on that, if a consultant is late and it triggers a cost to the city, we go back after them and hold them responsible for those costs.
Typically, what they are making submissions to us on payments, progress payments, and or additional payments, we will push back on some of that and say, no, we will not accept that extra cost.
This is to the contractor or to the consultant?
To the consultant.
Well, what happens if the contractor sends us a bill for extra costs and it's because of the consultant?
So the worst case scenario, if there's a clear breach, and I know of several instances where once we've completed a project, we have taken a consultant to court and gone through arbitration and settled those. So we will take action against a consultant if we feel that their actions were egregious.
With the consent of the committee, I'd like to just go to the second round. So just on the thank you. Okay, did you want to go to second round, Councillor Nunziata? I'll come back. Go ahead. Okay, thank you. I'll finish. I'll try to be as quick as I can here. So I just want to say, so what does egregious mean? So the auditor pointed out it took 5 to 35 days to respond to an information request. Is responding 35 days later egregious? And I'm being theoretical. In a scenario like that, if it costs the city thousands of dollars in delay claimed by the contractor, do we then go back to the consultant and say, you were late, You didn't work through the night, you didn't work through the weekend, you took too long to respond.
For something as small as that, typically no. The egregious means if we have significant cost overruns and delays on projects, and we find concerns not only with the management, with the design elements. So I know of 2 or 3 situations in my career where following those projects, we have proceeded with actions against some engineering firms and have been successful in getting some compensation.
Madam Auditor, is that consistent, that response consistent with the recommendations that you brought forward? So I think what I heard from the general manager was it wasn't about a single transgression, but a project that runs over. They look at all the parts.
So through you, Chair, our recommendations are around, partly around the performance evaluations of the consultants. So
Okay.
we did note that they overall it said met expectations, but a number of the areas where needs improvement without, and then they repeated those same issues the next time around. So one example would be that an interim evaluation had low ratings for not being on schedule, not having effective quality control, not promptly correcting defective work, and not providing competitive change order pricing. And then subsequently in the second interim evaluation a year later, similar performance issues were identified. So our recommendations are to improve those performance evaluations and to also consider feeding that into the procurement process.
Thank you. Last question, it's a quick one, Madam Auditor. The complaint was the lack of documentation. Is that because the documentation was not collected, or was it because it wasn't filed? So the difference is you're on site, you take a picture of an issue, it's sitting somewhere on someone's phone as opposed to being put into the project file. Was there a difference in that, or is it just the lack of documentation? That was my last question.
So through you, Chair, I believe it was a lack of documentation. And quite a bit of the process is manual with Excel spreadsheets and then another portal, but it's not kept in a centralized way. But also when we went to find the documentation for some areas, it was just not available.
Thank you. Second round, Councillor Nunziata.
Actually, I just have one question from your questioning. Pay duty. So do we not, when we approve the contract, is the pay duty cost not part of the original contract?
Through you, Mr. Chair, there's an estimate that's provided in the tender bid, but then there's also a unit rate. So if they have to use more of it, we adjust in accordance with that line item.
So how did they justify that they need more?
If you run into situations on a particular road segment that takes longer to complete and they need more hours of paid duty officers, they would submit that information.
So some of these contracts, would you agree, don't need pay duty? Because they're just standing there.
Through Mr. Chair, we don't make that determination. That's typically tied to legislation of when paid duty officers are required.
Well, maybe that's something we have to look at, because sometimes you see these projects and they're just standing there watching the hole. But anyway,
Chair.
Okay.
Councillor Myers?
Thank you. How many people in the department are specifically staffed to look at contractor and consultants' work and to review and to inspect it?
Through the Chair, I believe it is 3 staff. Lou?
So, and what's the department's budget?
Lou, would you be able to answer that?
Through you, Mr. Chair. So the staff that are in that unit, the Capital Works Delivery Unit, is more than 3 people in there.
No, but how many people are specifically reviewing the work of consultants and contractors?
So all the project managers and senior project managers would be doing that. We have about 20 staff in that unit, I believe.
Is it someone's specific job, or is this something they do in addition to their regular duties?
It is their duty. The senior project managers, they are managing those contracts, which include the consultant contracts. And if the consultant is doing the site supervision for the contractors, our project manager is still in that chain working with the consultant to provide that oversight.
So just to be very clear, there are 20 people dedicated to oversight of consultants and capital works and contractors in the department.
For this particular unit, not of all Toronto Water, because I do have multiple
Right,
sections.
for this particular unit,
Different
yes.
groups, yes.
Okay, thank you. And then just shifting gears, my next question, why are we required to use paid duty officers to review, I don't know what they do on these projects?
Through you, Mr. Chair, my understanding, paid duty officers are required either by legislation if we're close to an intersection, and there's signals there, and also at the request of the work zone coordinators and transportation. They will identify through a traffic management plan, well, whether a paid duty officer is required or not.
What legislation?
I think it's public Traffic Safety Highway Act, something like that. Sorry, I'm not a transportation professional, but yeah, I know it's tied to signalization.
So is this something that other municipalities do as well? They have paid duty officers guarding construction sites?
My understanding is, again, if it captures an intersection where then you would need some paid duty officers or the traffic agents that have been created recently. The city is moving to a different model on certain components.
So there is an option to replace the paid duty officers with traffic agents.
I believe that program is just starting, yes.
And just, I don't know if you know the answer, but are traffic agents more cost efficient than police officers?
I wouldn't know that answer, sorry.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you. Councillor Fletcher.
Thanks. I'm going to stick on this one. So every paid duty has a board, whether it's at the TTC, Councillor Myers, or whether it's at for Toronto Water or anything else. There is a sheet that tells them exactly what they are to do there. Can we get a copy of those sheets from you related to this? Sorry, apparently you couldn't hear me. I'd like to see some of those related to these projects, and I'd like that to be something that we can see. So you must have them because they're your paid duty and your contractor would have secured them, correct?
We could ask to see if we can get the records. As I said, they're engaged by the contractor.
So they're engaged by the contractor.
Yes.
So they're engaging them on your behalf. So those
Correct.
records for these projects that are listed here should be available to you
We could
or
ask
to the
see.
Auditor General as part of this project,
Yep,
correct?
we could ask to see.
Just asking the Auditor General that I would assume that those contracts were made on behalf of the city. So you should see them. They're not private contracts. They're your contracts from your consultant, correct?
That's correct. Within the contract that the contractor that's
I
doing the
get it.
work on the street,
No, I get it.
there would be
Yep.
that requirement
I understand. And that requirement is in your RFP, correct?
in the tender document, yes.
Pardon me, in the tender
In the tender
document. So I'm going to ask the Auditor General what the requirements are in the tender documents for PDOs on these. Are they, as Mr. Geronimo said, that they're required by legislation, or is it part of the traffic management plan that Transportation Services has developed? What's the origin of those? And if you don't know, maybe
So,
we can find
Yeah,
out.
through you, Chair, I'll have to get back to you on that.
Or we can know for council what they are.
Yes.
We could see those. And I'll ask Transportation Services the same question about this. If you, there's a seat right here, Mr. Curtis, beside Mr. DiGeronimo. Thank you. When you have a PDO through a transit management plan, is that required because it's legally required, or you're just considering that to be best practice?
Through the chair, I think my understanding is that it's best practice.
Best practice, so that's your decision. And then when you've done that, do you give the instructions that the PDO will have? Somebody has to give those instructions, and I'm wondering where they come from, because they shouldn't come from the consultant. They should be standard. Are there standard instructions for every PDO from across the city of Toronto for capital projects on the streets? I think that's an important question.
Yeah, through the chair, that would be the Ontario Traffic Manual OTM Book 7. that specifically highlights the need for police presence or some sort of traffic management presence.
Oh, police presence or some sort of traffic management presence.
That's correct. So traffic agents would be eligible through that requirement.
And who makes the decision that it's a PDO? And what's the difference in price between the PDO for a contract and a traffic management person, which could be from a private firm, as I know?
Yeah, through you, Mr. Chair, that I don't know the difference. I just want to remind people that the contracts that were reviewed were of a time period when we didn't have that program in place.
You know what? I
Talking
hear
about
you.
future.
I hear you.
Yeah.
I'm looking at the Ontario line, and Metrolinx has hired a traffic service to manage the intersection of Pape and Riverdale. They have not gone just to PDOs for that work. So I believe that's an option. So I think we'd like to look at what some of the options are to reduce the costs. Are we trying to reduce costs, Madam Auditor General? That's one of our goals for unnecessary work.
To you, Mr. Chair, what I'd recommend is we take also that instruction and move it into the Enhancing Capital Coordination Group as another item for them to look at and
I
document.
think we'd like to hear about that next week.
We can get you the additional information, but
Correct.
to make the changes and what contract language, what tender language you would use to activate that should be referred to that group so we can make a consistent change to all documents that go out. But we can get you the differences on the costs.
So you're taking that undertaking for council next
Before
week?
council, yes.
For this item. And
Yep.
Madam Auditor General, would you be able to oversee some of that? I don't know what the spending is. It could be considerable as far as the value, the additional costs per contract, and to really understand that what's best practice or what's required on all these things. And perhaps we could put the TTC into the same bucket, because every one of these jobs always has a PDO. So I'm looking for the instructions, the common instructions for PDOs, and the cost versus another way of managing that work that's not an intersection, because I understand the intersection is different. Motion is coming. Motion coming. Thank you.
Other questions? I'll go ahead. We need a couple of seconds to get a motion together, but we're going to ask for a follow-up report on this. I think there's interest in the committee to talk about it some more. My follow-up questions. I wanted to know if staff did a risk determination at the start of projects to look for variables and the potential for things like contingencies or allowances for uncertainty.
Yes, Mr. Chair, we do that. We do look at the complexity of the project, the type of project, our experiences in delivering it, and apply a certain contingency. There is a standard contingency that we typically use, but sometimes we may bump it up if we feel that a particular job has greater risk. For example, pumping stations. When you're working on live pumping stations, you can't shut down that station and bypass it in many cases, so you do add additional contingency risks.
My next question is to the CFO, and it's a very general one. Could you talk to the committee about which departments in the city are capital resource intensive, such as Toronto Water? They're doing a lot of projects that would relate, and the recommendations coming out of this audit would resonate with. For instance, Parks comes to mind, but could you just tell us, who out in the city is doing similar work?
So not necessarily similar work, but the largest capital projects we have, obviously Toronto Water is one of the largest. After that, it would be the TTC as an agency. You would also have Parks and Rec within the city, transportation services, city real estate or CREM specifically within the city. And then the other large delivery would be the capital repair that you would see in TCHC. Those would probably be the largest programs you have across the city.
Madam Auditor, do you think that those other departments that the CFO just listed could benefit from taking a look at this? You know, you looked at Toronto water projects, but these occur to me as very generic processes that are used in contract management, even outside of the city, outside of the public sector, in the private sector.
Through you, Chair, yes. As mentioned in my presentation, I do feel that many of the recommendations would be relevant for other city divisions, agencies, and corporations managing capital projects.
So you looked at, if I recall now, 17 projects, and what was the cumulative value of that? Just approximately.
Sorry.
About $270,000.
No,
Sorry, $270 million, sorry.
So that's fine. On 270 million, you found over $1 million worth of potential savings because of these principles. So you're at like you're about 0.5%.
So through you, Chair, I believe there will be some savings here, but I don't believe that has been quantified yet.
Okay. Do we have a sense on what our overall per year, and I won't hold you to a precise number, but just an order of magnitude on projects that are built out by the city?
So we have nearly a $60 billion 10-year capital plan. So on average, that's about $6 billion. I'm going to venture a guess that those large programs we talked about probably represent at least $4 billion of that $6 billion.
So this was 270 million of $4 to $6 billion. So the savings could be significant if there are systemic issues coming out of this report. Okay, I'm getting a nod yes. That's all my questions. I'll check with the clerk. I'm getting a nod yes that we might have the motion ready, but those are my questions. And I'll check anyone else before we go to speaking. Councillor Crisanti?
Yes, thank you. I just need clarity around slide, I believe it's slide 13, implementing better performance management for consultants and contractors. When I see something that says incomplete backup for progress payments, bit concerning. What do we mean by that? Are we losing money as a result of this? Progress payments, and then describe what I know what they are, but describe what they are. Are they exactly what it says here? Someone makes progress in work they're doing for us, and they want to get paid a portion of their total invoice.
Through the chair.
Yeah.
Sorry, through the chair, when we say lack of documentation, it's when we're reviewing the progress payment packages, we noted that there's not enough sufficient documentation for the consultant to review to see the validity and also for the reasonableness of the quoted price.
I'm sorry, I'm still not. So you're saying, give me an example.
So there were sometimes the contractor's daily work records were missing in the majority of our samples. There were also instances of missing key project and insurance documents to support the progress payment.
Wow.
Yeah.
And in the meantime, so we still make the progress payment with missing documents.
Correct.
Do you know, is there a value that, to that? How much are we losing there? Or are we losing? Are we making payments we shouldn't be making?
So through the chair, I don't know that we're losing money there, but any time that a payment is made, if approved to be made, it should be properly backed up to know that that's the amount that should be paid.
Okay, but you haven't found that we paid $2 million, and then once the backup material surfaces at some point down the road, we realize, oh, should have been 1.7 million.
Through the chair, I don't think the backup material did ever surface.
Well, then that's even more concerning. So backup material is not surfacing, and we're making payments. Okay, that to me raises a few red flags. And how do we fix that? I guess there's some recommendations, Auditor General,
yes,
with respect to getting this fixed.
Yes.
And I hope there's some urgency in these recommendations, because that just doesn't make any sense. And it's very concerning. All right, thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Are there other members wishing to ask questions on this item for the, I've lost track of the rounds, but good questions. Okay, so members wishing to speak on this item. I think we've got a motion that's close, but anyone want to speak to it? I think,
I'll speak while your motion's getting edited.
Councillor Fletcher.
Thank you. I think this was, I'm very happy to hear Mr. DiGeronimo say that this was timely and helpful, and that there needs to be a little closer attention paid to the contractors and those consultants who we've hired to run those jobs. And to the Auditor General, thank you for your deep dive into these things. I would say that it's a tiny bit unfair for the big project that's so late not to note that in some of the reasons why it's can't be done or it's been delayed, they're acts of God or acts of the tunnel borer. So I think that that should be a bit clearer instead of it's just staff didn't do that, because we all lived through the tunnel boring machine that was stuck, which meant that any job surrounding it was stuck. Hearing that there's other utility work that would be on top of Toronto Water work and ours would get bumped, that is of concern, and I would like to be clear as to what the hierarchy is, because I don't think getting your Rogers cable is at the same level of ensuring that our sewers are up and running for clean water and for sanitary. So how that works is very interesting to me. Or is it transportation services? I'd say clean water is number one, and we need to protect our water. I'm very concerned that the federal government's indicated they may start privatizing water. We fought long and hard to keep clean water in the city of Toronto, and I will commit to that, as I'm sure we all will. And that's not on our playlist here, but I'm flagging that water is just one of the most important things that still exists that we have as a public service. So if for some reason our water projects are getting bumped by other utilities, that's concerning to me. And I ask you to be prepared at council to tell me who's bumping water projects. Why are they not number one? Because they are number one for everybody that drinks a glass of water a day. For some of the other reasons why things are delayed, and it's mostly delays that we're looking at. I don't know if the contractors have bid on 7 or 8 jobs, and some of them are in Markham, and some of them are in Vaughan, and some of them are in Toronto. But somehow, once they're sequencing their work, we get sometimes the short end of the stick. So that's also an observation that I've come to understand happens quite a bit with contractors. And I don't know if there's a way to fix that in an RFP where we're getting top rated or what other jobs they have. And then there's just certain contractors that have most of these jobs. That would be an expectation that unless there is an act of God, that they do need to be finished more on time. They're on budget, but they're not on time. So congratulations on the on budget part. We need to fix up the not on time part, but I think that's far more under our control. And not always do we have projects that are on budget. We often find projects that are way out of whack on budget. So to Toronto Water's credit, they've been able to manage the costs associated with this, but it is frustrating when things aren't done in a timely way. This also relates to another item here in our agenda, which has to do with the utility cuts. Not that you're doing them, but you're providing where the work is, and then from a citizen resident experience, I'm here to represent the residents. Residents that have long jobs that are extended too long, frustrating. They don't like that. Residents that see no work happening, they don't like that. Residents that see a job that's been finished and then it just sits as a broken piece of pavement or a bumpy old thing for years and years, they don't like that. They pay good taxes, they're expecting that kind of service, they're expecting a higher standard, and so delivering on time, delivering well well-finished projects, I think is also part of this. So thank you for your deep dive into the sewers, Madam Auditor General.
Thank you. Other members wishing to speak? They're coming. Motions are coming. And, okay. Okay, then I'll speak. Are you waiting for a motion, Councillor Crisanti, that you want to place? Okay, so I'll speak then. We get some time here. So I have two motions. I'll ask that they just be displayed, and I'll speak to them in a sec. So the first motion is just to ask the city manager to report, forward this report to the city's divisions, agencies, and corporations for review, and to review the issues and recommendations included in the report and to consider the relevance to their respective organizations for implementation. And then B is City Council requests the DCM Infrastructure Services to report to the February 12th Audit Committee on the basis of requests for paid duty officers for Toronto Water, TTC, and Transportation Service projects, and to provide examples of common instructions provided to paid duty officers, and B, on alternative options for the use of paid duty officers. The latter motion being part of the discussion at the committee today, I get the sense that there's an interest in that subject matter, and I think we could do some more work on that. So I'll look forward to that report, and we'll see where we're at once we see what the results are. And then the first one, I think, is just recognition of the good work. This is something that needs to be passed on to different departments within the city. And they should be taking lessons learned. And as I asked the CFO, we've got, over $4 billion of work, if not more, that, could be subject and could be improved because of these recommendations. Then more generally, thank you, Madam Auditor, and to the Toronto Water team for spending time on this audit because it matters. And it's about better project management. It's about getting projects done on time, which we know there's costs to it, but there's also intangible costs of traffic delays, people suffering through those delays, looking at open holes, and anything that we can do to the city as the city to improve life in the city. I think this is truly important. The last piece, is just drawing that circle around consultants. We've talked about them before here. And I appreciate that the city goes out and gets experts in their field to assist with this type of work. But part of the fee that we pay to the consultants has to do with the transfer of risk. So if you're going to take on the role of taking advice, you take on the risks that are associated with that. And when there's something like it takes longer to respond to something, I get errors occur, and we're all human beings, and you deal with those. But if the follow-up or the responses are not happening within the window asked under the contract with them, and there turns out to be a cost to the taxpayer because of that, then why should the taxpayer be on the hook? It's the individual that's running the business providing the service. And so, I got some answers today, but I would encourage the management team in the city to hold consultants accountable for the services they provide, both the quality of the work and the actual services. If we ended up bringing this in-house, we assume all of those risks. And I heard today that there was a cost-benefit analysis being done. I hope that it's comprehensive in nature, that we understand all of that, because at least with the outsourced consultants, we can make a claim to them if there's a delay. And if it's in-sourced, we've got to account for all of that. But otherwise, I've got those two motions out there. If there's any questions, I'm happy to take them. But I do appreciate that the work that's been done on this. Question to the mover.
Yes, mover, would you put the February meeting in that so it's not?
I think it is.
Is it? I didn't hear you read that.
We just might be dealing with a version control, but certainly the paid duty report back is to come back on February 12th, 2026.
I didn't hear you read that. Thank you.
Yep.
Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else wishing to speak on this item? Councillor Nunziata.
Yeah, just briefly. And thank you to staff for the report, and thank you. So I do, I do agree Counselor, with your motion for the pay duty officers. Because sometimes you wonder why there's pay duty officers and then wonder why some projects they don't have it. For example, in my ward, when we're doing the St. Clair and Scarlet Bridge, and there's Toronto Hydro there, and they've got one lane of traffic, there was no pay duty officers, and cars, motorists didn't know where to go. So I don't know, and I'd like to see that report come back on when we need to have pay duty officers. And I think the staff is going to bring back that report where we need it, the list. Because sometimes I see some of these projects done that I don't see a need for anyone, actually, because you just see them standing there. They're not directing traffic. So you kind of have to wonder, do we need them? In some incidents, yes, maybe at a major, the one at St. Clair and Scarlet, I think we needed one there because we actually closed the bridge and motorists didn't know where to go. So we needed, and we did not have an officer there. We actually had no one, and my office had to request it because of the congestion at that intersection. So sometimes you need it, and so I do support your motion, and hopefully the report will come back. Again, thank you to staff, and thank you to Lou. And as far as consultants, I don't know, sometimes I wonder if we really do need consultants. A lot of it is just common sense. Thank you.
Thank you. Other members wishing to speak? Councillor Crisanti.
Yes, Mr. Chair. So as it turns out, I don't need a motion, so I'm not going to move it because it's been brought to my attention that it's been very clearly covered by the work that the Auditor General just put forward, specifically in recommendation number 10, Part E. I just wanted to tighten that up, but I've been assured that it's been discussed with Toronto Water and whomever pays the bills, that this part of it is going to be implemented once we approve this immediately, because I was a bit taken aback at the fact that this has in fact been happening over a period of time. I want to thank the Auditor General for the ongoing great work that she does in bringing these issues forward. It's so critical to ensuring that we do things efficiently here in the City of Toronto, and her work goes a long way. And we just keep hearing that a lot of the recommendations, whether it's TTC and hopefully it doesn't happen with these 12 recommendations here with water, that they get implemented. They're treated very seriously, and these things get implemented in a timely manner. I also want to take a moment to, recognize the great work that Toronto Water does. Lou Geronimo there and his team, phenomenal work. Up in Etobicoke North, I could tell you the issues are always dealt with in a very timely manner, and the City of Toronto is one of the best quality waters in North America, if not the world. It's a great water system, and I thank you for the work that you do. It's so important to our constituents. Since I don't, we need to put a stop to this of making payments when we don't have proper backup information that in some cases hasn't even surfaced from what I heard. So this is critical. We need to get this thing approved and implemented immediately. And thanks everyone again for bringing this to our attention. And it's unfortunate that it actually took place and happened. Thank you.
Thank you. Any members wishing to speak? Seeing none, then we'll take a vote on the items. Mr. Clerk, we're ready to go. So there are two amendments. First amendment is motion A on the screen. This has to do with forwarding the report. All those in favor? Any opposed? That carries. Our second amendment is concerning the report back on paid duty in February 2026. All those in favor? Any opposed? That carries. And on the item as amended, all those in favor? Any opposed? And that carries. Members, we still have a few items of business here. Our next item is AU 10.6. That is the audit of Parks Branch operations Phase 1 and 2, November 2025 status update. That is a report from management. Councillor Myers, you held the item for questions.
Thank you. Through you, Chair. So my question is relating to the motion to amend the original report back in 2024, which read, City Council requests the GM Parks, Forestry and Recreation to report to the Audit Committee as part of the future reports on audit of Parks Branch Operations Phase 1 on the plan for cultural change within Parks, Forestry and Recreation. I'm just wondering if I can get an update on the cultural change that's happening within the department.
Chair, in terms of cultural change, we have actively worked to strengthen a culture of individual and collective accountability and to foster pride in the quality of our services. Some of the steps that we have taken, we started off with communicating with all staff around the auditor's findings and also getting our detailed response plan that addresses all of the recommendations, and we did that through various memos but also through individual meetings as well. We've reinforced accountability at all levels and communicated the importance of change and communicated clear expectations. We also continue to work with staff and orient them through technological change. Earlier this year, we hosted 6 listening sessions, and we did that with leadership staff. We did that with leadership staffs in non-union, but also unionized leadership staff. So there were about, approximately 200 staff participated. It was an open forum to share feedback. I personally attended all the sessions, and we received quite a bit of feedback. We're currently reviewing that and looking for opportunities of how to address that where we can. Additionally, this last September for Toronto Public Service Week, we co-hosted events across the city in recognition of staff, and we co-hosted these events with Local 416. And specifically around the accountability piece for management, we have embedded in the 2025 non-union staff performance management objectives, which are 100% focused on our audit recommendations and audit outcomes. We recognize culture does take time and it's about continuous improvement, but these are the steps that we've taken so far.
Thank you. So I guess on the building the culture of accountability, I'm glad that you're taking these steps. However, there are still a number of issues. It's the same issues, in fact, in the same park that I'm having regarding the cleanliness of the washrooms, whether the water fountains are working. And unfortunately, when I raised these issues with management the last time, I got a laundry list of, the signs are not our responsibility. They're for MLS. The pond that's currently in disarray, that's not our responsibility. That's TRCA. The washrooms that are covered in bird poo, that's in the park, that's not our responsibility, that's CREM. So I guess, when are we going to see this culture change taking root where employees, someone in the department takes responsibility for what's happening in the parks and not simply say, well, that's another department?
Chair, there are different services that do occur within our parks that are managed with other areas. However, we do coordinate very closely with those divisions, and as park stewards, we are that main contact for that and are accountable for ensuring that that communication occurs and is communicated back in one stream. So
if the washrooms are in disarray, they smell, or they're covered in feces, is that a CREM problem or is that a parks problem?
It's a parks problem in terms of we own that asset and we will work depending, what the issue is. If it involves other areas, we will work with those other areas in order to do it, but it is our responsibility and our accountability to communicate that to you directly.
So how are you communicating this to the public? Because the answer I got back from staff was just completely unacceptable. There were signs that were safety signs about what to do in the case someone was drowning. The signs were completely worn out. You couldn't see it. So what was the point of the sign? And the response back, well, this is MLS or this is TRCA.
Those are specifically assets within parks for which we are accountable, even though another division or another agency may have a role to play. it is our responsibility to work with them and communicate with them. I
Are you
can
going to
follow up-
be, sorry, are you going to be moving to a model that there is someone, one person in charge of major, at least for major parks, that is in charge of the parks that takes responsibility and accountability for what goes on in the parks?
In terms, there are
Last
15,
question.
there are 1,500 parks across the city. Our span of control currently is one park supervisor to 50 parks on average and about 275 hectares. You know, in terms of a point of contact for responsibility of that, a park supervisor is that main contact. They're also overseen by a manager that has a district piece, and they are responsible directly for the accountability on those spaces.
Thank you. I have a second round of questions.
Second round of questions?
Yes.
Go ahead.
Thank you, Chair. So regarding the cultural the cultural change within the department, who is leading this initiative and what is their experience in cultural change?
Chair, culture change is, you know, within the division, we have taken culture change at various levels.
Who is the sorry, that's not what I asked. Who is the individual who is leading this initiative? There has to be a person responsible for this. It's not everybody's responsibility. It needs to be one person's responsibility. So who is the person?
I have a large role to play in the culture change. I am setting the expectations as the director of parks, and I am leading a large part of the accountability piece on the culture change.
So are you the person responsible for leading the culture change within the department?
Within the branch, I take full responsibility for leading culture change within the parks branch.
Okay. When will we be seeing a report from yourself on the steps you have taken to implement the culture change and what the actual plan is to change the culture within that specific branch?
So in the July 2025 report back update to the Audit Committee, we did include in there our update on culture change.
That was an update. I'm asking, is there a plan, specific steps? Are there metrics for success?
We have not been directed to specifically report out on culture change plan, but if that's something that you're interested in, I'm happy to meet with you and go through that.
Thank you. And is this something that you have the current capacity to do in addition to your other responsibilities, or will you need additional help to implement a culture plan for a branch that's quite large, has a large number of employees spread across the city doing different functions? Some are union, some are non-unionized. So I understand this is quite complex and you do have additional roles. So is this something that you yourself can handle, or is this something that you will need additional resources to undertake successfully?
That is something we can take back and look into. I also believe all of management has a role to play in culture change, so I agree it is part of our role, but we can take back and look at additional resources that they're required.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Are there further questions on this item? Seeing none, members wishing to speak.
I'm just going to ask
Fletcher.
about that because I'll just ask, I guess, the deputy city manager, what role HR would play when we're saying we're having a culture change or leaving it simply to the director of parks operations. Has that just been left the plan with Ms. Kuvakis, or is there, have you or the acting general manager been looking over that?
Yeah, I would say to the chair, it's broader than the director. It involves the GM, it involves myself, it involves P&E as well. So, you know, as mentioned, we're happy to come back with further details of that, but I think we all have a responsibility and an accountability in terms of driving culture change in all of our roles. So not only the director.
So the plan itself would not just be the director's plan?
That's
correct. It would have
correct.
to be vetted through yourself and then our new general manager,
That's correct. That's correct.
And I'll just ask Ms. Kuvakis, what was the feedback? Can you give us some of the feedback that you got from your listening sessions, please? Because it was as a direct result of the Auditor General's report, correct?
Yeah, just 1 second.
Chair, just hold my time while Ms. Kuvakis is looking for. Doesn't he look like a chair? It looks like a table.
He's sitting on it.
He's holding.
Apologies. The feedback from the sessions that we received were opportunities that we were looking specifically at around staffing and retention levels, around training and staff development, around increasing workload and being able to balance work culture, and also interdivisional relationships.
Can you deep dive into a few of those, please? Because those are pretty high level. So what did people tell you? What did management tell you? What did the workers tell you?
So the workers told us that they do have some challenges, specifically around, and I'll use the staffing one as an example. We have a higher, turnover of staff because a lot of staff are seasonal. There's challenges around that. In terms of adequate staffing levels, our ratios are quite high, so there was, discussion about that.
So just what do you mean by that? The adequate staffing ratios high?
For example, our span of control numbers currently are 1 to 26 FTEs or 1 to 40 staff.
1 to 26 FTEs and for part-time?
Seasonals included, but in actual people, that's about 1 to 40 staff.
So FTEs, so really it's 1 to 40 because you've got the part-time, but they're considered FTE for that seasonal, or you've put them together, you've bundled them as an FTE, okay?
Other challenges that they had talked about was around training and development, sort of having access to those training opportunities, being able to have the time to do those training opportunities, being able to upskill and ensure staff are able to attend those things. We also looked at increasing workload in terms of administration. With technological change comes, additional sort of responsibilities in that regard. They had concerns around sort of increasing workload.
Can I just ask a question? Because when we first dealt with this, someone said, can we not take a picture? Apparently, staff take a picture of all the work they've completed and send it in already. It's not an actual extra ask. Am I right about that?
You are correct. It's embedded in some of our new processes, specifically our quality assurance framework.
Yeah, but they were already doing that.
Not in 100%.
Not everybody.
Not consistently, but now everybody.
And just for your management, putting the requirements on them to properly follow the sign-offs and getting everybody to do that, what did your managers have to say about that?
They were happy to do so. They have a formalized process now in order to do so, and the framework also allows them to not just be able to document in those reviews, but also to physically get out on site to see the work that's actually occurring. So it's been a welcome kind of prescriptive change for them that allows them to be in the field more often.
So to codify the work.
Correct.
And that was an option for them previously, correct? But it wasn't happening.
It was an expectation, but it wasn't necessarily consistent, where now it's increased.
Yes, and Madam Auditor General, you found that that was a problem with the workers, but would you not agree with me that that was a management expectation, but not a requirement? And now your audit has shown that I'm not expecting somebody to do something unless management has indicated they have to do it.
Sorry,
would you agree with that observation? Pardon me?
I'm not sure on the question there.
Well, as I recall, your audit was that park staff were not following procedures, and we discovered that they weren't really, that management wasn't requiring them to follow procedures. And now Ms. Kavakis says that procedures have been codified. And would you agree with my observation that previously, if management is not requiring someone to do something, that they might not actually do it? And your audit has now clarified to codify these worksheets and everything else clearly.
So through the chair, yes. So improving the policies and the supervision of the staff so that they are doing what is expected is part of the recommendation.
That was the recommendation, to be clear what management role is in overseeing staff. Would you agree that that was not exactly the main function of your report, but it was there?
Yes, so through the chair, clarifying roles and responsibilities and expectations and improving supervision.
Correct. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you. Any further questions? Seeing none. Members wishing to speak on this item?
I'll speak.
Thank you. Councillor Fletcher.
I'll just speak. I'll just quickly refer to what Councillor Myers has said, and I'm sure that the Parks Director is actively looking into that as we speak. As a councillor, I would find that very concerning to have raised those issues and not find that I'm getting proper response to that, because they do seem quite serious. So that to me is not exactly the subject of this conversation, but it's one, I guess, that should be looked at as to how an escalation by a councillor's office is dealt with in the Parks Department. And I would assume it would be given high priority. The other thing I just want to say again, going back to the original report, and I'm very happy to hear from Ms. Kavakis that the listening sessions sounded very, very interesting, and people are glad to kind of have a framework that they're working within very clearly. Here's what you have to do. Here's what we expect of you, and that everybody has the same expectations. So now we've codified what you're doing on your job, how you're reporting back on your job. That is good news for our parks operations. And this report is, I forget when we dealt with it, not that long ago, so I'm giving you some time to kind of really get into it and get out there and make sure everybody's working to this new standard. I will reiterate once again, and this is with the Auditor General's division, I was quite concerned when the whole onus of the parks operations audit was on the workers, that they weren't doing this, they weren't doing that, they were seen doing this, they were seen doing that. I will reiterate what I said then. If somebody isn't doing their job properly, that is a management issue. That is, somebody is not managing those people in the right way. They had the forms, they weren't turning them in. So it needed a refresh from management, from the top to the bottom. That was one of the findings, but to me, we can't just blame the workers because it's easy. We have to say there's a management refresh required here for how these jobs are being done, for the standards that we're expecting in the parks, for the standards in communication to the public, for the standards in communication to the councillors' offices. And I think that's underway. I'm hearing that's underway. And I'm sure that it's very interesting issues for our new general manager to probably read that report, see the update, and to ensure that those kinds of standards are now written in completely. I'll just say about the park staff in my area that everybody's going to brag, but mine are just the best. Everybody's great, and the extra work that they do and the care and attention and the love that they have for their work is outstanding. So I would not want one example of somebody not responding properly to tar the whole division. I just have to really say that your staff are amazing, that generally there's always going to be somebody that needs to be assisted. And the work that Ms. Kavakis is able to do with the guidance of this report from the Auditor General has really lifted everything up in the Parks Department. And we know that parks are our front yards. They're where we go. They're where all of the great things that can happen in the parks need to happen. It is a reflection of the culture in the city. I will note that having chaired that committee years ago and now chairing again, when I started, there were no arts in the parks. You weren't allowed to get a permit for that. You could only get a sports permit. You couldn't have a market. There was no way to have a market. All of these things that we want in our parks, we've evolved to the point where they're active places in a different way than they were when we started this 10, 20 years ago. So I'll just leave that at that there, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Councillor. We are bumping up to our time limit. We're at 12:26. Councillor Fletcher wants to finish the item. I'll just provide the advisory to the committee here that we've got the work plan, which I think is sorted out. We've got the arenas, which unless somebody wants to talk about them will be quick. And we have the utility construction photo documentation is the last item. Is there an appetite to try to get this agenda done?
Well, if we're close to the finish line, maybe we should, if we can get it done by 1.
I think we're quick on the first 3. I don't know about utility construction. If the members have a sense of how long that'll take, I don't have any questions on it, but.
Not too long, but don't you have a lunch to take, Veronica?
So let's try to get this done, and we can move another motion to break if we think it gets too long. How's that? Okay, motion to extend to complete the agenda. All those in favor? Any opposed? That carries. Okay, thank you, Councillor Fletcher. Did anyone want to move this item? Did you want to speak, Councillor Myers? Go ahead.
Thank you, through you, Chair. So I first just want to say, I just want to thank Kate Bassel for when I did escalate these concerns, they were taken seriously, and she was very receptive to my ideas. So I just want to call her out and thank her for that. And working with my office to get some of these issues resolved, because they are quite serious. And I also want to say I understand culture takes a long time to change. We are currently in the midst of that at TTC. One example is we are currently pursuing a bus bunching and gapping pilot, which has been a long-standing problem at the TTC. And for years we were just told there's nothing we can do about it, there's nothing you can do about it, there's nothing you can do about it. Well, now we actually found out that's not true. We are doing something. We launched a pilot, and even though the pilot showed promising results but didn't meet the target, it wasn't just, well, see, there's nothing we can do. It's let's double down and see what else we can do to reach these targets. So there's really a culture change happening at the TTC, and I do hope that there's something similar happening at the Parks Department. Particularly with the new leader coming in, because I think this is sort of the one department that's so high profile. So many Torontonians love their parks. I certainly do. And we just want the best for our parks. We want a good experience. We want a safe experience. And we want to have pride that when people come and visit our parks, that they're in good working order. And that, there's nothing to be embarrassed or ashamed about the state of our parks. Parks are kind of like the canary in the mine of a city. When you see that the parks or maybe the roads are in some sort of disarray, it sort of points to larger problems within the city. So I really do hope that the department takes a focused look at how they can do this culture change that I think is so crucial to any strategy or policy that we're going to do, because I think really that at the end of the day is the thing that your employees will go by, whether they decide to put in the extra work or, to make the parks look great. And I know a lot of our employees do that, but for too many, that sense of pride is just not there. And I think we have to recognize that, and this is not a management or a union thing, this is just in general what I've observed, and I think we really need to push this agenda, and again, I'm very happy to work with the Parks Department to help achieve this in any way that I can, including providing lessons from what we're doing at the TTC to really change that culture around. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Myers. Anyone else to speak? Seeing none, can I have someone move the item? Councillor Crisanti moves the item. I saw him first. All those in favor? Any opposed? That carries. Members, I propose we go back to the top because I think we're there. AU 10.1, Auditor General's Office 2026 Work Plan and Budget Highlights. We had finished questions. Councillor Myers, I think you've got something. You've got a motion. Please go ahead and speak.
So I've amended my motion, and I will read it out. That City Council requests the Auditor General to give consideration to including in a future work plan an investigation into Smart Track implementation and to report back to the February 12th, 2026 Audit Committee meeting on any required changes to the timeline of future work plan investigations. I think the motion is pretty self-explanatory. I think this is an incredibly important audit to be done. We spent over $1 billion of Toronto taxpayer money on Smart Track. What we were promised was 15-minute London-style surface transit from 20-odd stations. What we ended up were 3 GO stations owned by the province of Ontario that were paid for by Toronto taxpayers. I think this is something that needs to be looked into so that it never happens again. And I also think it's important because this department, again, is responsible for delivering the Eglinton East LRT, which is an incredibly important project in my neck of the woods. That will be part of the urban fabric of the community when it is constructed, but we want to make sure that we're not seeing similar issues in the Eglinton East as we saw on the Smart Track. And I know other councillors want to see the Waterfront East LRT completed, as that will be a very important project to make sure that the waterfront lives up to its full potential. But we need to make sure that the proper accountabilities and oversight is in place to make sure that these types of mistakes don't happen again. So thank you, and I'm happy to take any questions.
Thank you. Any questions of the mover? Seeing none. Any members that have not spoken wishing to speak on the item? Councillor.
I believe there's a motion. Are we on the right? Yeah.
So this is audit item number 1, the Auditor General's plan.
Yes, correct. And that's, then I do have a motion.
Yep, go ahead.
That was acknowledged by the Auditor General. And so my motion just simply reads, requesting the Auditor General to consider moving the Toronto Transit Commission subway maintenance from 27 to consider including it in the 26 work plan. So, Mr. Chair, that speaks for itself. Again, you know, we all know how critical and how important public transit is to Torontonians. I want to highlight particularly to Etobicoke North in Ward 1, where we seem always to be transit deficient. These connections are really, really important. Every time we wake up, and I do, and I watch CP24, I see that there's another potential shutdown coming up, slowdown. I believe we're shutting down a portion of Line 1 service again this Saturday. And Line 1 and 2 were closed recently for a couple of days as well. It's too frequent an occurrence. And so we need this expedited, and the Auditor General seemed amenable to seriously looking at moving that up to 2026. We cannot wait 2 years before we get a result on this particular part of this work plan. So I ask my colleagues to support this. Let's keep people moving and keep the subway system in good repair. Thank you.
Thank you. Any further speaking? I think you've spoken twice, Councillor Myers.
I have a
question to mover.
Question of the
Question
mover.
to mover.
So, can you just put the motion up, please? So I'm just wondering, because I was under the impression that the moving things to the 2026 work plan was not advisable at this stage, and that we were to give the Auditor General time to properly find out where that should go in the implementation stage, which is why I drafted my motion as is. So I just want to confirm, did you confirm with the Auditor General that this could fit in the 2026 work plan?
No, in answer to your question, I did not, but I believe I asked the question on the floor, and the Auditor General offered to, you know, if I want to move a motion to this effect, understanding the importance of course, as you do, Councillor Myers, to keep our system in good maintenance and repair. That maybe waiting until 27 is not a consideration. She said she would, I believe, consider this for the 26 work plan. And we know that, I believe you asked that maybe come back to the next council meeting with her updated work plan review with the considerations that we put forward, including this one.
Thank you. And Councillor Crisanti, are you also aware that the TTC just completed an audit on the subway maintenance and the streetcar maintenance by the International Association of Transit Professionals, the results which have been made public, including management's response? That was just done yesterday.
Okay, I heard about that, but I don't have all the details of that. However, this is something that the Auditor General has on her work plan for 2027. And again, I can highlight strong enough the importance of getting this moved up, and I'm hoping that she takes that into consideration for her work plan in 26.
Councillor Crisanti, would you consider it a friendly amendment if we allow the Auditor General, since we haven't heard whether or not this could work in the 2026 work plan, to have her report back at the February 2026 AG to see where this could move in the priority, as I'm sure she might have a different consideration if she spoke with TTC to make sure that there's not an overlap or a duplicative audit of the subway maintenance when one has just been completed. And from my understanding, she has not yet reviewed that audit nor the management's response to the audit.
I wouldn't have a problem.
Yeah, but I think they should be consistent.
Well, I want the Auditor General to consider this in her work plan. I don't want to jeopardize the opportunity. We wait for Feb of next year, and for some reason she still feels strongly that we need to go ahead with this. Then I don't want to jeopardize that opportunity in 26. So I think we're going to review this next week. In the meantime, it gives me an opportunity to have further discussions with the Auditor General. And if needs to be any amendments, we could do it then.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay. Clerk advises they're in order, so we will have to vote on them. Mr. Clerk, could I have the first amendment? So Councillor Meyer's motion as amended. All those in favor? Any opposed? That carries. Second motion. Councillor Crisanti, all those in favor? Any opposed? That carries. And on the item as amended, all those in favor? Any opposed? That carries. Okay, back to our list as I flip through my computer screens. The next item is AU 10.8, Arenas 2024 Audited Financial Statements and Status of Outstanding 2024 Audited Financial Statements. I held the item. Questions of staff? I have none. No questions of staff. Members wishing to speak? I will go ahead. Mr. Clerk, could you just place the motion onto the screen? So my ask is of the city manager and appropriate staff to continue to work with the arena boards and managers to look for opportunities to assist those boards in addressing control deficiencies identified by the external auditor in their management letters. And members, you'll remember that these letters often contain instructions or, excuse me, advice on what needs to be improved. And that is no different in this particular set of information in front of us. And finally, if there are any persistent issues, to bring them back to the Audit Committee for our attention. Hopefully you agree with that, and if there's any questions, I'll take them. Seeing none on the amendment, all those in favor, any opposed, that carries. Mr. Clerk, do I need an item as amended on that? I think I do. Because it goes to council. Okay, an item as amended. All those in favor, any opposed, that carries. Finally, our last item of business, AU 10.9, which is utility construction photo documentation. Councillor Fletcher, you held that. Questions of staff?
Yes, I'm just trying to find from the last meeting. In the report, it should list exactly what the instructions were. From there they are, decision history. So in that decision from the previous meeting in July, it was very clear, and of course I didn't put this date on it. So it says City Council requests, General Manager, Transportation Services to provide a list of permits, timing, and sequencing for all the utility work for the following streets in Ward 14, Woodfield Road, Riverdale Avenue, Grant, and Danforth. Somehow, with the ending street. This has not been provided here. Now, I gather that was to be provided in this particular report, which is an audit report. So I'll first ask the Auditor General, is there a reason why you didn't require that in this report up to this council?
Through the chair, this is a management update item, so it's between City Council and
management update items,
management.
so you wouldn't oversee that then? It's just direct, doesn't come through you? Why isn't it on the Infrastructure and Environment Committee if it's a management update item? Should it go there? Can it go there?
That's a question for the clerk.
Clerk, can this item go from council to the Infrastructure and Environment?
Mr. Chair, the request from City Council was to have the general manager provide a list of permits, timing, sequencing for Toronto Danforth. It was made by the Audit Committee. It wasn't specific to the Infrastructure and Environment Committee.
But it was made for specific to the Audit Committee, so I'm finding that it's not here. Is it not here because I didn't say to the next Audit Committee meeting? Is that the reason why it's not here in your opinion? Or should it perhaps have been here?
I think it's a question for Transportation Services, just in terms of their report.
All right, then I'll go to Transportation Services. I think it's pretty clear, but apparently it's not because I didn't put the date. Is that the reason why it's not here? Because I didn't put November the 4th, 2025?
So through the chair, that is correct, Council. I don't think that staff understood because the motion asked for a list and not specifically for a report back. Our understanding was that we were going to provide you with that information offline. What we should have done, with hindsight, and I apologise for this, what we should have done is loop back round with you and clarify exactly what your expectation was. So on behalf of Transportation Services, I apologise for that.
So what we have is we have something with large steel plates, et cetera, which has really nothing to do with what was requested. Or was that requested to show large steel plates and how that work is done with the utility contract? I don't recall that. So can you remind me of that, please?
Through the chair, my understanding is that was requested and that's why it's included.
So that was requested to come back at this meeting then? That was requested directly for November the 4th, 2025?
That's my understanding, Councillor, correct.
Can you tell me where in that motion it says to do that? We adopted that July 23rd, 24th.
Through the chair, recommendation 16.
Recommendation 16.
City Council direct the General Manager of Transportation Services to submit a follow-up report to AU 9.7, audit of the Transportation Services.
I see that.
November 5th.
Since there was a request for Ward 14, wouldn't you just assume that that was also covered in there, but apparently not? So I guess I'll have to have that report come to the following meeting of the Audit Committee, because that is request for management from the utility cut report. And Mr. Chair, I don't know how to deal with this, Councillor Chair, but I don't want a briefing. I want a public discussion on the timing, the permits, and the sequencing of this work, because I think it will be very instructive. So that was my, unfortunately, and I will note that unless you put the date, you're going to assume, even though there was a date for Ward 14, there was an assumption that I didn't need that at this meeting. The fact is I did need that at this meeting.
So through the chair, I can only apologise again, and I confirm we're more than happy to report back to the next Audit Committee meeting with that.
So now I have to say, Council reiterate the request made in Part 15 to have this work come back to the Audit Committee. That's a motion from here, which is unfortunate to have to do all that extra work, but I don't believe that the spirit of my motion was met by the division.
Councillor Fletcher, are you satisfied with the motion?
Yes, I'm happy with that
Okay.
motion. I'm unhappy that it's not here. I'm happy with your motion. Thank you for your.
Are there any other questions of staff on this item before we go to speaking? Seeing none, Councillor Fletcher, you're welcome to speak and move that.
I just said that. I'm just going to move that. It was fully my expectation that when there be any update, that would have been in an update, just logically, but apparently we have to be very prescriptive, which I certainly will remember in the future, and there'll be a date on every motion that I make for a report. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. On the amendment, all those in favor, any opposed, that is carried. And I'm just checking with you, Mr. Clerk, that is a single vote on that item because it was otherwise a receive. So that was our last item of
Do
business.
we have to, so as amended?
We do not.
Pardon me?
One vote is in order.
One vote is in order.
Okay.
Mr. Clerk, have we completed all items of business?
Just.
Point of order?
It's not on the agenda, but I was just wondering, what's the update on these pylons? that are everywhere. Like, are we gonna get an update?
I need to complete the agenda. I appreciate.
No, but this is new business.
That's a nice try, Madam Speaker. Okay, the clerk advises me that we've completed all items of business despite the good try by my colleague, Councillor Nunziata. Therefore, the meeting's adjourned.
A motion that we get an update at the next meeting? No?
Okay, motion to before this gavel drops, motion to reopen the item that was just closed. All those in favor? Any opposed? That's carried. Mr. Clerk, I don't know how fast you can type, but.
Well, just add on, give us an update on those pylons that are taking over the city.
Friendly amendment.
At the February meeting. And February 12th, I'm surprised it's February 12th because it's my birthday on February 12th. So I know. Maybe we can bring on the pylons in the council chambers.
Get a report for your birthday. Okay, on the revised so it's number 2 clause, removal of pylons following construction up at the next report. That's friendly, Councillor Fletcher. I think I got a nod. All those in favor of the amendment? That carries. That is the last item of business, Mr. Clerk. Please accept, on behalf of the committee, my appreciation to the clerk's team for your quick work keeping us in order. Meeting adjourned.